Hello, everyone. Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive today. Fine 8-game slate in front of us. A lot of questionable tags still floating around on there. We're going to do what we always do here. We're going to go game by game, breaking down the best plays. And of course, I'm Chris Spags, and I'm a man that needs help in the NBA streets these days. Of course, too much time spent in the world of NFL. Thankfully, they sent in the best reinforcements I could ask for. A man who I love and admire and have not done a show with in a while, Mr. Adam Scherer. Ship my money. Adam, how are you doing on this fine Wednesday?
I'm doing well. It's been a long time since we've done a show together, since I don't really do NFL stuff and you don't do a lot of NBA stuff.
Yeah, it's tough, man, because like you had your sabbatical, we were talking about it a little bit here, and Adam's bringing fresh looks now to the show, which I know the chat's going to love and appreciate, but looking handsome, looking dapper, and that's what I want to see from you, Adam. I'm tired of Twitter shit posting. I'm ready for you to enter your influencer era.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really, I mean, I still shit post a lot, but I've cut back on Twitter a little bit too. It's just, I'm starting to get old. It got kind of boring.
I can relate to that, but you know, it's not to be boring today, guys. Talking about all the games, and of course, making sure you hit that like button down below. Hop into the chat as well. Always appreciate to see the new names, the fresh names, of course, all the vets as well in there. But hop into the mix. Never anything bad to say in there. I'm sure that's going to be the case as always. Let's go and let's start off with the first game on tonight's slate that we need to talk about. Dallas, of course, heading into Washington. Interesting matchup in this one. Very high total projection wise. Maybe not a lot of guys to jump out, but the Dallas side, of course, Luka Doncic, man that I named my own son after, so I'm always looking at his numbers and want to get a share of what he's trying to do. But today, maybe not looking like the best play. Kyrie Irving, a little better projected according to Stochastics data. But the ownership here, Adam, nobody over 10%. And it kind of feels like maybe this is a spot where something could go off given the matchup. Washington basically playing intramural ball on their side. But on the Mavericks side, does anybody stand out to you as being worth forcing your way towards?
Yeah, so a lot's going to depend there on what ends up happening with Kyrie's status, because this is a fantastic matchup against Washington. Fastest team in the league, bottom 10 in defensive rating. They are one of the best matchups you're going to get, but pricing on Dallas is pretty much where it should be, and we don't have a ton of value elsewhere. So, you know, right now you only have 3% ownership coming into Luka, even though he's in a great spot. Like, it's really hard to think he's not going to torch Washington here, but he's over 12K. You don't have a ton of really good cheap plays, and right now Kyrie's still projected in. If Kyrie's out, Luka's projection certainly comes up. Kyrie himself looks like the best play to me from Dallas if he does go. 8,800 on DraftKings, 8,600 on FanDuel, point guard, shooting guard eligible. Great matchup, looks really good. And then after that, there's pretty much nothing. You know, 4% ownership coming into Hardaway, shooting guard, small forward, 5,900 on DraftKings. He's another one that looks better on FanDuel, just cheaper on FanDuel than DraftKings, and you have a more salary cap, so a lot less expensive relatively. But nothing looks great here despite the matchup. If Kyrie is in, if he's out, Luka looks better. Tim Hardaway looks better. You can get to Josh Green easier. You know, maybe Jaden Hardy becomes a thing, but he's already up to 4,700 on DraftKings, which is pretty aggressive. So great matchup. Would love to be getting to this game, but it's pretty tough with the pricing.
Yeah, definitely a contrarian spot you could try to force your way to. As Adam mentioned, you definitely can try to find some Luka Doncic in there, but high price tag on him. And we know the upside's there, certainly, but obviously we have to have some value open up. So perhaps if you want to go in a different direction and hope some value opens up later on the slate, play Luka early and then see if you can late swap around. Of course, using the late swap tool on Stochastic, that's going to help people win a lot of money throughout the course of the year and already has. But definitely in this situation, I just find it hard to get to anybody, and I'm with you. Kyrie, about 10% expected ownership for me, based on the sims I ran before the show, but really nothing too exciting there. The Washington side, also not too exciting. I feel like I did see a little bit of Danilo Gallinari sneaking in as a value play in the sims that I ran before the show. Besides that, Kyle Kuzma, chat speculating about Kyle Kuzma wanting a trade out of the euphoria that is playing in Washington right now, where these guys are not even looking at plays. There's a viral clip that I saw, I think from yesterday, of Jordan Poole in a huddle. They're drawing up the plays, and Jordan Poole just not even paying attention, saying, "This is my fucking team." So this is your team, Adam. How do you actually, I have to ask this because I don't really know your take. How do you feel about Jordan Poole? Because I feel like you and I, if I were in Jordan Poole's shoes, this is how I'd probably approach my basketball career.
I mean, I think Jordan Poole's just being Jordan Poole, which, like, this is what he was in Golden State, where you have Steph Curry and Draymond, like, you can't really get away with it. Here it is kind of his team. Like, Kuzma's obviously better, but the only thing surprising me about Jordan Poole this year, because I'm getting fully what I expected in terms of like the negative highlights and just all the dumb shit that he does. I thought he was going to be a better fantasy option. Like, I don't think he's a good basketball player, but I thought with the volume he was going to get in Washington, he'd be productive, and he hasn't even been that productive for the Wizards. You know, for the season, coming in at just shy of a DraftKings point per minute. I thought he was going to legitimately be like an 8K plus fantasy option, even though he was going to do nothing to help the Wizards win games. But he hasn't even been that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Very low projection today from Stochastic, 30.7 is projection for him on DraftKings, and 27% usage rate, not really assisting as much as he did during previous periods in Golden State, where he was kind of playing in the framework of an offense. Now he's just playing playground ball and doing double spin moves to get to the hoop, and it's a fun time, but probably not one that's the most productive fantasy-wise. A few guys here popping up for me, Adam, though. I'd mentioned, obviously, Danilo Gallinari is a potential value play. Obviously not the most exciting, but a guy that can flesh out a roster. Kyle Kuzma, a little more productive fantasy-wise as well in the year, 1.22 fantasy points per minute for him. Are you getting to a Kuzma or an Avdia here, guys that have taken a pretty decent leap forward in terms of their fantasy production per minute this year?
Yeah, I don't necessarily think there's one guy from the Wizards that stands out as like the best option, but there's ownership coming into a lot of them, and I think they're just useful pieces. Kuzma's been actually a good fantasy option this year, 1.25 DraftKings points per minute. He's also coming off a game where he played like 37.5 minutes, and that's noteworthy to me just because we have seen weird minutes, weird playing time from the Wizards this year, even in competitive games, to the point that we were talking on shows, like, are they just actively throwing games even this early in the season? Because you'll look and it's like, oh, this game was competitive, but Tyus Jones played 22 minutes, or you'll look and Kuzma played 27 minutes, but last game they managed to blow a 23-point lead to the Raptors, but they gave 37.5 minutes to Kuzma. They gave 32, 33 minutes somewhere in there to Tyus Jones. So we actually got a real rotation, and there's no guarantee that happens again here. They do have Gallo back, so that's another guy that they can throw into the rotation to soak up minutes, but at least knowing that, maybe they're not actively just losing games, and knowing that, that is at least in the range of outcomes for Kuzma is nice. The flip side to that is we also know that they are capable of playing in 28 minutes in a competitive game. And at 8,100, if you get that 28-minute Kuzma game, you're pretty much dead. So there is risk, but the production's been there. The price tag is pretty reasonable. It's not a bad matchup against Dallas either. It's not like they're good defensively. So Kuzma looks pretty good. Certainly some sticker shock on Denny Avdia, but he's earned it. 1.05 DraftKings points per minute this year. He's been the second best point per minute guy, tied with Gallo and Gafford. And he's, getting enough minutes that at small forward, that price tag's warranted. Tyus Jones at 5,700, getting 10% ownership. He's about a fantasy point per minute guy. Also, all three of those guys, I think you can go to with, confidence isn't the right word, but as much confidence as you're going to get for the Wizards. Daniel Gafford, reasonably priced at 5,400. It is, center only, so you obviously have that opportunity cost, but he looks fine. In tournaments, if you want to just hope Jordan Poole actually makes shots, he is low owned, but that's still, a pretty tough sell, especially on DraftKings, where he's a little bit more expensive than FanDuel. Gallo at 3,700, Kispert at 4K, Koulibaly at 4,500. Don't love any of those guys. I do think it's interesting, though, that Kispert is getting more ownership than Gallo. It's probably just because he's shooting guard small forward, but I'm expecting around 18 minutes from Gallo. I'm expecting around 16 to 18 minutes from Kispert. Gallo's the much better point per minute guy. We have him projected slightly behind Kispert, but actually with a higher chance of being optimal. So I'm a little surprised to see Kispert getting more ownership than Gallo.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I think Gallo, as I mentioned, I've said Gallo more times today than I think I've said in an entire run of NBA seasons for the most part in the past. But I do think for Gallo in the spot, just a nice value play. The positionality that Adam mentioned, I do think you're going to see some weird guys if you're running the stochastic sims coming up at shooting guard, small forward, especially if they have that dual position eligibility. There's one guy in Milwaukee that we're going to talk about later on with no Giannis that I'm getting a lot of, and I may have seen the name before, but I was baffled to see him pop into the lineups for me today. But I think there's some nice values in for Washington, but really, like Adam kind of hinted at there are guys that mix in for the most part on this team, not anybody you're really banking on as a key part of the portfolio. In the next game, there might be one guy at least that we can talk about that with. New York, of course, visiting Atlanta. 115.8 implied points for New York, 114.8 on the Atlanta side. Knicks playing a little bit more of a drag them out kind of game as they have under Tom Thibodeau for a few years now. Julius Randle, due for some run good in terms of his true shooting on the year. 45% true shooting there. Projects really well tonight. I feel like the positive regression has to be coming at some point. We've probably said that for a few games in a row now. So anybody on the Knicks side, Adam, standing out to you? And I guess, is it Julius Randle, if so?
Yeah, I mean, Randle, I think, is the most appealing option here. And he's talked about, kind of struggling through, to recover, bounce back from the injury he had last year. But as, disappointing as he's been from an efficiency standpoint, he's still been a 1.16 DraftKings point per minute guy. So it's not like we're talking about somebody where you're saying, well, eventually he's going to get back to normal, but right now he sucks. From a fantasy standpoint, he kind of sucks from a real life standpoint, at least compared to Julius Randle's expectations, but he's still producing. And it's not like his salary is up at 9K or something like that. He's priced for what he's done this year. So power forward, center, 8,200, getting 19% ownership, 18% chance of being optimal. he looks like the best play from New York. If Barrett's out, he'll look even better because you do get a little bit more usage for him. You would get a little bit more for Brunson. Assuming Barrett's in, I think Barrett, Brunson, Robinson, all secondary tournament plays, they're all getting 6 to 9% ownership. They all have 5 to 11% chances of being optimal. None of them stand out. They're just sort of last piece in, relatively high ceiling guys. But Randall's the one that stands out at 8,200, 19% owned, 18% chance of being optimal at power forward, which again, center, point guard, you're typically going to have a lot of really good options. You don't have as many options at the forward spots.
Yeah, Randall for me came up a lot in the Sims, so he definitely stood out to me as a player that could get better, as Adam mentioned. Barrett right now in these stochastic projections might not be in there in a little bit. We'll see if he ends up going tonight, probably over the course of live before lock. Hopefully they'll know by the time we get there. We should see RJ Barrett, probably not contribute too much would be my hope. Julius Randle, I've been trying to get, in the recent slates, I've been trying to get a little Julius Randle on the upswing just because definitely some positive regression coming his way, I would think, as he works his way back from his injuries. On Atlanta, on the other side, Trae Young, of course, known for famously putting up huge games against the Knicks. Obviously not in the Knicks arena this time out. Going to be in Atlanta for this one. Projection for Trae Young for me looked really bad. I'm kind of curious why that would be the case, but for the stochastic one, not looking too great. Maybe a little more of a tournament play here at a 44.5 projection for him. But I'm not getting any, literally not a single hawk in 150 lineups that I've seen sim-wise so far. Adam, can you make a case for anybody here for a hawk, given the fact that they are going against a pretty tough Knicks team?
Not outside of the very obvious, like Trae Young can score a lot of points, Clint Capella can score a lot of points, whatever, for his salary, whatever it may be. But DeJounte Murray's price tag increased after yesterday. Bogdan's price tag increased. Bay increased. Hunter's more expensive. Trae Young is back. So, what we saw yesterday obviously isn't the case today. And the Knicks are one of the slowest teams in the league. They're one of the best defensive teams in the league. I think they're actually first right now in defensive rating this season. So it's not like it's a matchup that is boosting these guys. Third in defensive rating. It's not like it's a matchup that's boosting these guys. So really all I can say is if you want to play a 2% owned Trae Young, fine. 5% chance of being optimal. So he's just one of these guys where, he's technically going under owned, but he's still extremely unlikely to be in the winning lineup.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And, big pace down as well for Atlanta, or fairly big pace down, big pace up potentially for the Knicks on their side. So I think that's sort of the logic why you make the case to go to some Knicks, probably cannot make the case to go to some Hawks unless you were getting really weird. It's the tournaments that you're playing out there. Let's keep it going here, keep up some good pace. We got Boston coming up next, 114.8 implied points for them. Philadelphia, questionable Joel Embiid right now. It was going to be one of the biggest things that we need to know before the slate starts. 109.8 implied points for them. On the Boston side, everybody seems like they're priced fairly appropriately. Really nobody popping up as a value play. Best projected player looks like Jason Tatum with over 50 from Stochastic. Besides that, though, obviously the logjam of usage is pretty tough. Jaylen Brown questionable, though. So I guess, Adam, do you have a lean on this one? Do you think that Jaylen Brown goes? Or, I would assume that he might, but I don't really have a lean either way.
Yeah, I don't have a lean either way. If he's in, this is another team where you can get to Tatum, Brown, Drew, Porzingis, White. They're all pulling 3 to 10% ownership. They're all correctly priced for everybody to be in. And so I wouldn't be prioritizing any of them, but if you land on one here or there, it's fine. Holiday is getting the most ownership at 10%. He has the highest optimal percentage at 9%. I would be interested in Jaylen Brown if he plays. It's been the case pretty much every slate where he's low owned this year because shooting guard, small forward, 7,800. His median projection is pretty mediocre for that salary, but he just has the upside in any given game to be the guy that they, that kind of takes over offensively instead of Tatum. Normally it's going to be Tatum, but Brown does it enough that it's interesting at very low ownership and a reasonable price tag. His usage rate this year is not very far behind Tatum. His assist percentage is not very far behind Tatum. Tatum rebounds at a higher rate. But the upside that Jaylen Brown gives you at 5% owned, being able to play him at guard or forward at a sub 8K price tag is always interesting. But also obviously to keep an eye on his status. If he's out, Holiday's going to look a lot better. Tatum's going to look a lot better. The Celtics in general will look better from a fantasy standpoint.
With Porzingis, is there anything perhaps to him? I guess if Embiid were rolled out projection-wise, I think still pretty tough play. But in terms of the upside there, it's just going to be a lot easier for him. I'm not sure how he's going to be able to handle Joel Embiid if he's in. If he's not in, obviously I would think things open up a little bit more for Porzingis, who has shown a little bit more rebounding, a little bit more hustle, I think, across the board. Obviously, that's more of an eye test thing than an actual data point. But a 1.1 fantasy point per minute guy on the year. Do you think there's any sort of things that move around on the Celtics side if we see Embiid out?
It just makes the game probably played at a faster pace than it otherwise will be. So as a whole, it just makes Boston look a little bit better. That's something that from a DFS standpoint isn't going to move the needle too much. the projections should increase a little bit for Boston, but it shouldn't be. Nobody's going to go from like, oh, they weren't really a good play, and then Embiid's out, and it's like, oh, now they're great. It's just going to make them look, slightly better.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way to look at it. I would be curious about a tournament flyer on Porzingis or two if you did see him beat out, but that's just me, I think. But I've been really impressed by Porzingis, but it might be the new facial hair that he has. Philadelphia on their side, again, 109.8 implied points. Tyrese Maxey, if you're going off the 2023 numbers, I think becomes a little bit easier to get to at this $9,500 salary. And I guess let's talk about him first. The Embiid questionable thing we'll hopefully figure out pretty soon. But Maxey, I guess, are you buying on him now? He's been over 1.25 fantasy points per minute this year, 27% usage, just about 29% assist rate, looking like a man who has benefited the most from this James Harden trade, and frankly, the best version of himself that we've seen yet. Is Maxey possibly worth a $9,500 price tag for you on DraftKings?
It's just so difficult for me to get to him in this matchup. Like, I think he's a guy that at 9,500 you'll play on some slates, but the problem you're just going to run into is, one, the point guard position is just always loaded, and then two, he's playing the Celtics here at a really expensive price tag. If Embiid is out, then yeah, you're going to get more opportunities for Maxey, because not only is Embiid a 37% usage guy, which some of that will go to Maxey, Embiid has a nearly 30% assist percentage as well this year, and so does Maxey, but it's likely that Maxey would take on a bigger playmaking role if Embiid's out also. So still at 9,500, like, he's kind of a scary play, even if Embiid's out. But assuming Embiid is in for now, it's really tough for me to get him at 9,500 on DraftKings, 9,800 on FanDuel, as good as I think he is.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think he's really shown a lot this year, but you do look at that longer term sample size, and it's just not quite the same play, but certainly has made some strides. I'm not going to begrudge anybody betting the Tyrese Maxey most improved player stuff, but I do think for this matchup, it gets a lot better if Embiid's out for Maxey. But right now, I think it's pretty hard to stomach a $9,500 price tag for him. Tobias Harris, we could talk about him too before we hit the Embiid questions. Harris, I think a reasonable play at his salary. Nice projection from Stochastic, 31.9. Going to put him, I think, as a potential play with a dual position eligibility to get into some lineups. Do you like Tobias at all? Melton, I feel like another value play. I don't know that either really stands out meaningfully, but they kind of feel like guys you get in some lineups, and I don't know, would you run the other way, or would you be able to have them?
I don't think either one stands out, but at least with the way things look right now, with the relative lack of value we have, getting to Melton at 5,500, getting to Harris at 6,600 with Ford eligibility, they're just going to be somewhat useful pieces to like round out lineups. You're getting 6% ownership to Harris, 7% chance of being optimal, 11% ownership to Melton, 14% chance of being optimal on DraftKings. Looks a little bit better on FanDuel where he's cheaper, but I think they're sort of just like right now, sort of just like placeholder last piece in type guys. The more value you get and the easier it becomes to start going stars and scrubs, I think you start losing some Harris and Melton, assuming Embiid's in. If Embiid's out, then Harris is going to look good. Melton's going to look better. But, for now, assuming Embiid's in, I think it really, my interest in those two guys really comes down to like what happens on the rest of the slate, because the more balanced you're going, the more useful Melton and Harris are, the more that you're able to go stars and scrubs and maybe get to more Embiid, get to more Luka, you probably start losing that mid-range with Melton and Harris.
And for Embiid, we'll tackle this now and assume that he's in. Obviously, Adam's done a good job here talking about some of the stuff that's going to happen perhaps if Embiid is out. But Embiid, just a new man on the year, near 38% assist rate. As Adam mentioned, near 30% assist rate on the year as well. I might have said assist rate twice. 38% usage rate, excuse me. Embiid basically playing a poor man's Nikola Jokic so far this year, perhaps in his quest to, I don't know, completely assert dominance over him after not winning a championship, and Jokic did. But Embiid in the spot, tough matchup on paper, but the Q tag on him feels like the ownership will keep that down pretty low. So assuming Embiid's in, Adam, you mentioned the price tag is tough to get to, but would you force your way to some Embiid just because the field's probably not going to be there due to the Q tag?
So, I mean, it depends on what value you get. I would certainly love to be getting to Embiid. The matchup sucks. That goes without saying, but he's 11-6. He's been a 1.8 DraftKings point per minute guy this year. Even if you walk that back some for Boston, you're talking about, probably 1.65, give or take, fantasy points per minute. Still is going to look, very, very appealing at 4% owned. It's just the same problem as we had with Luka's. How do you get there, and how ugly are the value pieces you're going to be playing? Because particularly on DraftKings, on DraftKings, the issue with getting to Embiid or Luka right now is they've been so aggressive with their pricing on cheap guys that like the value you're talking about right now, when you talk about like, $3K or $3,500 guys, like JaVale McGee is $3K. In my lineup generator video earlier, like Jared Vanderbilt was showing up. I mean, these are the guys that were showing up as value pieces. Even Patrick Williams is up to like 4K or something. Just even in this game, Robert Covington was 3,400 yesterday. Obviously, he disappointed, but he's 4,600 now. Like, how are you playing that? But also, like, it just, those mid 3K guys don't really exist right now unless we start getting guys ruled out. And it just makes it so tough to get to somebody like Embiid unless you're really willing to punt with very, very questionable plays.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Definitely some cheaper guys that might have big upside. Again, Milwaukee game we're going to talk about in a little bit here. A lot of guys in that one who could have, Embiid-ish upside, probably not full Embiid upside, but get you close enough relative to the salary. So I think there's some question to answer there. But if there is value that opens up, I do think Embiid kind of interesting to go to. Contrarian spot for sure, but one that I think, again, he's been playing out his mind this year, much like Maxey. Team really rejuvenated with no James Harden in their lives. Now let's talk about Milwaukee. Again, we're going to, guys, smash the like button if you can here. I'm seeing that we got about 1,700 people in the room. And frankly, I don't get to do a lot of NBA shows. So it would help me out and make me feel good, make me feel fuzzy inside as I'm sick this week, man. I'm still doing shows, helping people out here. So please hit that like button down below, show a little love. And of course, great to be doing a show with my pal Ship here. So please smash a like button for us, show some love. And let's talk about the Milwaukee Bucks. No Giannis in the mix today. I was watching the strategy show because I didn't realize that Giannis hadn't been ruled out this morning. Giannis is ruled out now, so you guys didn't talk about that then. But a lot of value popping up here on the year. Damian Lillard about a 33% usage rate, 29% assist rate for him in moments without Giannis on the floor, but still not quite Portland numbers for Damian Lillard. A lot of guys historically, though, have benefited with Giannis out. Guys like Bobby Portis, guys like Chris Middleton. How do you attack this one, Adam? Because we do have no Giannis out there. It doesn't quite mean what it did last year, where he's not soaking up quite as many possessions as he did, but still soaking up more than enough here that pretty much everybody in the Bucks is going to look good to some extent.
Yeah, it still makes the team look a lot better. Bobby Portis, I think, is the starting point here. 5,700 power forward center. I'm assuming he starts, but even if he doesn't, there should be more minutes for him. He's getting 48% ownership, 29% chance of being optimal. Very good point per minute guy. And then obviously not playing any minutes with Giannis is even better. He's played 87 minutes without Giannis on the floor so far this year. Fantasy point per minute, but again, that's only 87 minutes. You expect that to come up because Bobby Portis is better than that in general. Dame so far this year, 98 minutes without Giannis, 1.3 DraftKings points per minute. Middleton's at about 1.1. Lopez is just over a fantasy point per minute. So you just expect these rates to increase. And like you said, not necessarily to the extent that they did last year when Giannis was out, because last year Giannis being out meant you're getting Middleton and Drew. Now you're getting Middleton and Lillard's a higher usage guy than Drew, but you're still expecting a nice bump in production. Dame at 9K is going to look good. He's getting 20% ownership. Already mentioned Portis. Chris Middleton's the really interesting one for me, and it's a really difficult thing to handle, I think. We've talked about it before when I think Dame was out, but you have Middleton at shooting guard, small forward, 5,600. His rates are going to go up with no Giannis. That's essentially a given, but he's just not playing minutes. He played like 19 minutes last game, and could he play more minutes? I guess it's possible, but like logically, it doesn't make sense. You're going to be like, oh, we're resting Giannis today, and because we're resting Giannis, we're just going to completely get away from Chris Middleton's injury management program and play him 30 minutes. Like, I don't think that is something they're going to do. Unless like today was just magically the day he was going to play 30 anyway, but that doesn't seem likely. So the problem you run into with Middleton is, like, if you look at the boom bust tool, we have him getting 8% ownership. We have him with a 15% chance of being optimal. But the problem is that when you run this stuff and you're figuring out optimal percentages and all of that, it's assuming that his scores are distributed in a way where he has like a right tail basically. And he can still produce at an outlier level from like a point per minute standpoint, but I don't think the minutes can get there. And most players, like pretty much every player, unless they're limited, when you talk about them, there's volatility in their production and in their minutes. Middleton, there's not really volatility in the minutes. There's just volatility in the production. So that optimal percentage is a little bit higher than I think is actually true. And probably, I don't know, should be like 10-ish% owned. The positions are still good. The salary is good. It's just, how much can he do in, call it 20 minutes or even 22 minutes?
Yeah, we're seeing right now a 23.1 minute projection from Stochastic, which obviously is not going to give you the upside you necessarily need. I actually have one tournament kind of question for you. And NBA is so sharp that I know this is going to be the case, but there's been, 3 years in a row where basically Giannis is ruled out. You jam in Middleton, you jam in Portis, maybe you jam in some of the other fringe pieces. Jordan Nwora, rest in peace, guy who used to contribute sometimes then when that would be the case. Do you think the field reflexively will get above this 8% ownership projected just because they're so used to playing Middleton, even agnostic of the fact that that, like you mentioned, like logically, there's no reason why they should rush him back to play more minutes now. And it's also not the same situation as he's had this gigantic upside in the past. But I kind of feel like, and this might be the NFL in me, I feel like people are fishy enough that they might hop in and it might be just 15% ownership just because that's what it's been in the past at a minimum.
I don't really think so. I think people are just too good at NBA now. That I don't think they're going to really make that mistake. Maybe in like lower stake stuff, maybe in like the $15 on DraftKings. Certainly in high stakes, I don't think you're going to see Middleton like getting jammed in or anything. But I think most people that play NBA are just so projections heavy that they're probably not going to get there. One thing I did want to touch on with Portis, because I saw Josh Gillum mention that he wasn't going to play him if he started. Portis has started 17 games since the start of last season, where Giannis has been out and Brook Lopez has been in. 1.2 DraftKings points per minute, 31 minutes per game. Whatever argument people may be thinking of for like why you wouldn't want Bobby Portis the starter is not backed up by anything.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. So value plays on this team as well. I feel like we kind of glanced over those guys. We talked about the core guys. Portis, again, it'd be a key part of every build projection-wise, as well as the ownership. And certainly a player for me where sim-wise, I was getting 90% of them before the show. I don't expect to roll in with 90%, but that's what the sims are pushing me towards. And certainly that represents what he means on the slate. One guy I got a lot of, and I also got a lot of Connaughton, so I don't want to throw that out. Marjan Beauchamp came up a lot for me today. I don't really get why, but he's 3,500 dual position eligibility, been a 0.7 fantasy point per minute guy on the year. I don't have him projected that much better today, but it looks like he's getting enough minutes in the stochastic projection to get there. Are you playing Beauchamp, Connaughton, Malik Beasley? Do any of these guys really stand out to you?
I mean, I would rather not, but it just goes back to what I was saying before when we were talking about Embiid. These guys are sub 4K, and you just don't have that many viable guys in that price range. Then you add in the multi-position eligibility. Beauchamp, shooting guard, small forward, 3,500. We have him with about a 17.5 DraftKings point projection, 16% chance of being optimal, 29% ownership. So going over owned, but relatively high chance to be optimal with a 17.5 point projection just speaks to, how little value we have at this moment. Same goes for Connaughton. They should play more minutes. We have Connaughton projected for 19 fantasy points, small forward, power forward, 3,800, 15% ownership. Connaughton for the season, only half a fantasy point without Giannis on the floor, but small sample. 0.6 DraftKings points overall per minute for Connaughton. Obviously not good. Beauchamp's at 0.73. I mean, you're talking about value plays here that project reasonably well from a point per dollar standpoint, but for either of these guys to actually give you a score that you need to win a tournament, like for them to really be optimal, you either need them to shoot much more efficiently than they normally do, run into several steals, or somebody like Joel Embiid or Luka Doncic go for like 80 plus DraftKings points. And, if 17 points from Beauchamp is the best sub 4K guy, then he's going to be optimal because you have to have Luka in that case.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. And that's a good way to look at it as well, that these guys are not on their face, great plays by themselves. You can look at the numbers and you can find that out for yourself pretty fast. But the way they help other things work in a lineup, that's where the Sims tool really does add value. Now, that was something that that Adam and Josh were talking about this morning as it related to Robert Covington last night. These are players that sometimes you don't feel the most comfortable with, but the sim data is meant to be agnostic about that. It's not telling you that, hey, you should love this guy. It's telling this guy allows you to accomplish things on a slate, and then it gives you a higher chance at that right side of the tail, like Adam mentioned. So I think that's a really good point. Like the
optimal percentage that we mentioned from the boom bust tool, it's not just like it's talking about that player, obviously, but it doesn't just have to do with that player. Everything works together. And it's basically, in this case, a reflection of how they compare to the other really cheap pieces and, how often some of these top end guys are just breaking the slate to where you have to have them.
Yep. No, I think that's a good way to look at it. And definitely, that's from a man who knows what he's talking about here. So if you guys are confused by the sim world, that's a good way to hop in. And actually quickly, because we do have to get a couple plugs in here. The Millie plug, I think, is a good one to hit on right now, because that's what we're talking about, the Sims tool. And this is one that's near and dear to me, because Short Gamer TV is a stochastic member, has been here for a while. I remember his name from that. He's also appearing a lot in my Splash Play channel, where we don't get a lot of $1 million winners just hanging out, chopping the shit with me. So shout out to Short Gamer, but go check it out. He won it with the Sims tool, of course, one, I believe that was the 555 this past week at Millie Maker, but $20 off right now if you use the promo code Millie. The data packages also now include access to the simulation tools with support for Showdown. So you can build up to 10,000 lineups for NFL, 5,000 for NBA. And the NBA tool, I didn't play NBA in a few days, and I was always like, what? This tool has improved already over the course of a year. And you can check it out. You can now build for high stakes. You can build for low stakes. You can build all different kinds of lineups on there for the Sims tool. And the base package will allow you to build up to 500 lineups and export up to 20 as well. So if you don't have the money to throw down for the big package, You can still get one in for yourself. And all of those, again, will be coming off with $20 off. So check it out by using the promo code Millie. The deal's ending on Monday, so take advantage of it and give your kudos to Short Gamer as well, because I guess him by proxy, you could thank him for being the one that gets you the discount. Toronto, though, let's talk about
hang on a sec. Kyrie out for Dallas.
Oh, okay. So Luka taking a big jump up there. I guess your immediate reaction, the beneficiaries, I presume Luka and Hardaway, but
yeah, I mean, so Hardaway's been 0.97 DraftKings points per minute without Irving on the floor this year. That's without accounting for Luka. Josh Green, Grant Williams probably play a bit more. Like I said before, it's going to be very difficult to go to a Jaden Hardy at 4,700, even though he's a decent point per minute guy. But yeah, I mean, it makes Luka look better. It becomes easier to take shots at Green, Grant Williams, Derrick Jones Jr., Hardaway.
Yeah, kind of like a Milwaukee situation, basically, where everybody gets better. And again, just trust the numbers, whoever you're going to get with that one. But I would agree, like Luka's upside goes up quite a bit. And this is now, I mean, a very high total against Washington that somebody's got to score a lot of points here. And I think we know who that's most likely to be. Definitely big news there. And of course, live before lock, we'll talk about that in a lot more depth coming up next, which I believe will be Greg and Neil. Our pal Eric Lindquist has not arrived back from New York. The delicate package has not yet been shipped. So he'll have to wait. I knew that would get a smile out of Jordan calling him the delicate package. That's what I did it for. Toronto, 111.3 implied points here. Scotty Barnes, the guy that stands out the most to me with how he's been playing on the year, up to a 25% assist rate, 1.3 or just shy of 1.3 fantasy points per minute for him on the year. Obviously, Dennis Schroeder not playing a traditional point guard with how they've been attacking with Barnes so far on the year. Not getting a lot of him, but he's a guy coming up the most for me. You do have Siakam, Schroeder, guys that have, I think, fairly okay ceilings at the very least. But Adam, anybody else standing out here for you meaningfully, or anybody you're getting, I would say, above 10% on relative to this Toronto team?
Probably not going too crazy on any of these guys. It's not like it's a terrible matchup, but the prices are just where they should be. You know, Pascal Siakam had the massive game against, I think it was Washington the other day. His price tag's gone from like 8K to 8,700 on DraftKings. His production's still down this year. And, you know, we talked about it, of course, right before he had the massive game, but you expected him to be better than he has been. But it is a concern that his rates across the board are just behind Scotty Barnes. Like Scotty Barnes is taking on, or has taken on, such a big role for this team that it's not as simple as looking at Siakam and just saying like, yeah, well, it's Pascal Siakam, he'll bounce all the way back. You have a young player that is clearly improving and cutting into Siakam's workload. For the season now, 1.05 DraftKings points per minute for Siakam. That's about a tenth of a fantasy point behind Julius Randle when we know Randle's playing hurt, or, you know, at least playing not at 100%. And he's more expensive. So, you know, it just becomes tough to prioritize that. Scotty Barnes, point guard, small forward, is great. 9,200, 4% ownership, 9% chance of being optimal. I think as a whole, Toronto is a team where you can throw somebody into a lineup to be contrarian, like Siakam, Barnes, 6K Pirtles, 6,800 Schroeder. If you wanted to roll the dice on Boucher, who closed the last game at 4,100, you can do that. Like all of these guys are right around 5% owned, give or take, and they do have high ceilings. It's just the reason they're as low owned as they are, and the reason that you can't really prioritize them is they don't look much different than a lot of other players on the slate that project in their range and are getting around 5% ownership. But, you know, in an individual lineup, any of these guys make sense where you have, you know, 5-6 popular guys. And it's like, okay, well, I have $9,200. Let's play Scotty Barnes at small forward. Great. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you were to tell me you're suddenly playing like, you know, 40% Scotty Barnes, I would kind of ask like, why Scotty Barnes and not why, you know, not like 5 other guys that look just like him.
Yeah, like why not Maxey? Same thing, kind of.
Right. Yeah. Why not Maxey? Why not? There was another one earlier too. Trae Young. You know, like they're all the same thing.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think that these guys look interesting. And again, especially with Barnes, I was playing on the year, you know, 15% rebound rate, which is not that far behind Pirtle, the 17% rebound rate, 25% usage, almost 25% assist rate. He's contributing in every category, and, you know, kind of an elevated Denny Avdia's kind of year is what he's having so far. So I think Barnes is interesting, and the rest of these guys, like Adam mentioned, I mean, I know you guys talked about this morning that Adam and Josh discussed on the strategy show, where these are guys that can help you both get a ceiling while also decreasing the ownership of a chalky lineup. So that's where they have some utility today in a matchup that's a lot softer as well, without Giannis defending all these guys and trying to inhibit their pass to the rim. Yeah. We do have to present our sponsor right now, and this is a read I haven't gotten to do before, and frankly throws me for a loop to sometimes see Vivid on the screen, because I'm a man of a certain generation that thinks that means something entirely different. But no, what it means for you is there's a new pick site to get out there. So You all love your underdogs. You all love your prize picks. You all love better. I'm sure you all flock into to talk about the Paul brothers and the great things they're doing in the betting business. But no, you should be going to Vivid Picks. You know why? Because you're giving you the best deposit match in the business right now. $300 deposit match on your first deposit on there. Standard deposit match is $100. So you can do that too. You can do 200. But basically, if you do 300, you're going to get the best outlay for yourself, the best chance to build your bankroll, make some money back on it. And your first entry on Vivid Picks as well also comes with $25 secure play. So if your first entry loses, you get it refunded up to $25 in Vivid site credit. All you have to do is predict whether players have more or less than their projected stats across multiple sports and combine your selections for bigger payouts. So you know how it goes at this point. Maybe at a certain point, they'll be dealing with the big DraftKings FanDuel conglomerate trying to come out on them. For right now, though, they want your business desperately. So go over to Vivid Picks, check the link in the description to do that, and go join on board there. Vivid Picks wants you, and they help us put on this show. So support them, support your own wallet, and go check out Vivid Picks right now today. And don't ever search the other Vivid. Don't even look it up. Don't think about it. Adam, you never heard of what I'm talking about here, right? You don't know.
No, wait, what'd you say?
The other Vivid, the other version of it.
I know what you're talking about, but no, I don't remember it.
Oh, I was saying I was just making a joke. Don't worry about it. But anyway, point being, let's move it on. It failed. We can all learn from it and move on. Orlando, 107 implied points. On their side here, no Wendell Carter, no Markelle Fultz, the great Markelle Fultz renaissance, seeming like it's getting worse by the year. But we do have Orlando here, decent projections on guys like Paolo Banchero. We also have Cole Anthony looking close to playable, but not really at that salary. I am getting him a little bit in the Sims, so maybe he's playable for me. Not many guys here jumping out too meaningfully. Mo Wagner, a little bit of a rebound upside, perhaps with Wendell Carter out in this one, should be a boost perhaps to his projection, but still 7% projected ownership for him. I'm getting 8% in a sim. Adam, is anybody standing out to you meaningfully on this Orlando side in a game that should be a little bit on the uglier side based on the totals and the projected pace?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm most interested in the dropping price tag on Banchero. He's coming in at 7,700 now on DraftKings. For the season, 1.1 DraftKings points per minute. So very comparable to Julius Randle, a little bit less expensive. He is getting the most ownership on the team as well at 14%, 13% chance of being optimal. So nothing really standing out there ownership-wise, but he looks good. The rest of Orlando, I think, is just another team where they're going slightly under-owned. They're not priorities at their respective positions, but 7% ownership coming into Franz Wagner, Cole Anthony coming in at 8%. I think that's the one you mentioned. 15% chance of being optimal in our boom bust tool. We have him with about a 27 DraftKings point projection. Played 28 minutes yesterday against Brooklyn. Probably would have played a little bit more if he had needed to actually close the game out. Jalen Suggs, same thing. Played 32 minutes yesterday. Probably plays a little bit more if that game had gone down to the wire. Point guard, shooting guard, only getting 6% ownership. Mo Wagner, minutes are all over the place. He's generally playing like a lot in the first half. He's playing, 11, 12 minutes, somewhere in there in the first half. Then sometimes he subs in, or sometimes they have him close. Other times they bring Goga back in for him in the fourth. So the playing time's inconsistent. He's $4,800. It's a really tricky price tag because, like, if he plays 20 minutes, 19, 20 minutes, it's pretty safe to say you don't want Wagner. But if you get the game where he closes and you're talking like a power forward $4,800 Mo Wagner for 24 minutes, that's a really good play at low ownership. So there's a lot of volatility there in the playing time. I do think it's at least somewhat a case where, like, if he's playing well, he probably stays out there too, which is nice, but certainly not anybody I'm building around. I think as far as the non-Banchero pieces, Anthony probably my favorite, followed by Suggs.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that one. And I guess if you had to guess who closes, relative to a matchup with Vooch, who I think you could probably put Goga or Wagner out there against him, and it wouldn't really matter that much.
Yeah,
who do you think
it could be either one. Like when Wagner was on the Wizards, they would actually give him a little bit more run in tougher matchups, like Embiid specifically. He's really, really good at drawing charges and just getting under the opposing center's skin and just not backing down from these high usage guys. But Vooch isn't like that kind of center where I think you would necessarily like be going that route. Plus, obviously, it's a different team. But like Wagner is somebody that in the past has sort of been used against higher usage centers, just as basically a annoying little brother. But that's not anything you can actually carry over to this. Like, you think it's necessarily going to happen.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I would think that Wagner has a shot to close here, so I'm a little bit curious about him, and I think I'll be around the Fields ownership, maybe a little bit higher based on the sims I ran before the show. But I think it's a nice spot for him, and Goga though I think is a perfectly valid play as well. But I think the mobility of Wagner probably a little bit of an asset against Vooch, who should be getting some more work here, as we'll talk about in a moment. Chicago 108.5 implied points for them. No DeMar DeRozan, personal reasons he's out for this one. Some trade rumors floating around too, but it could just be personal reasons was why he's out. But we have a lot of ownership going to Vooch, a lot of ownership going to Kobe White as one of these semi-value plays in the slate. Zach LaVine also picking up over 20% ownership in this one. I'm getting a lot of Vooch. I'm getting a lot of Kobe White. I was not getting a lot of Zach LaVine before this one, but his rates take a big jump upwards with no DeMar. Let's go player by player on this one, Adam. Vooch, big boost for him with no DeMar as well. Where are you standing on Vooch?
Yeah, he looks very, very good. $7,800 price tag. He's played 7 games since the start of last season without DeRozan and with LaVine. 1.42 DraftKings points per minute, 27.5% usage rate. LaVine in those games, 1.22 DraftKings points per minute. So basically what was happening...
hold on, big one. So Jaylen Brown out, Porzingis also out for Boston.
Okay, so Boston's giving us some value today.
Yeah, so Tatum's going to take a jump.
Tatum looks better. Holiday looks better.
Yeah.
Pritchard is punt. I don't know what his salary is off the top of my head. If Pritchard is cheap, he's puntable. Same for Hauser. Pritchard on DraftKings 3,600. Hauser 4,400. I mean, I'm not going to get too excited about either of them, but they're at least like viable large field punts. Horford's going to look better. I assume he starts in place of Porzingis at 5,500 with power forward eligibility. Derek White's going to look marginally better. The whole team just looks better, but also it's going to make it like you're not getting dirt cheap value is the thing. It's still not going to just like unlock Luka or Embiid, but it is going to give you a little bit more value with guys like Horford, I guess.
Yeah, Horford was the guy I thought of immediately, and then I looked at his numbers for the year, and he has been down significantly, but obviously a different situation. But he has been a guy in the past. That's part of why Philly signed him, was that he was doing such a good job defending Embiid. Obviously, that's many moons ago now. But certainly players going to get some mix there. And again, live before lock, I'll have you covered after this one. The 100K man, Greg Ehrenberg and Neil Orfield, of course, the Showdown Shaman coming together for that one. So stay tuned for those guys. They'll give you guys all the updated news because there's a lot of it apparently breaking. Usually Deeper Dive is like the chill show where you just go game by game. We have some banter, we make some porn jokes, and now it's like we're getting all the injury news.
Yeah, having to recap games we already talked about isn't a normal Deeper Dive thing.
No, but we're making it work here, guys. Again, smash the like button here. We're pivoting for the sake of you. I want to make sure you get Adam's best takes because Adam is legitimately a genius at this stuff. So that's why I always enjoy doing the show. So I hope you guys appreciate that and smash the like button for him as well as for me. Chicago, though, back to them. So we talked about Vooch enough. Zach LaVine, Kobe White. I guess these two guys, if you want to cover them, and the rest of the team if you want. But those guys are the big ones ownership-wise. How are you feeling about both LaVine and Kobe White?
Yeah, I mean, this team in general looks really, really good. I am interested to see where I do end up on LaVine because on the surface, I think he's a very good play. And so does everybody else. There's not really an argument against it. Like I said before, 1.2 DraftKings points per minute in 7 games without DeRozan and with Vooch last year. Shooting guard, small forward, $7,700 price tag is very reasonable. The issue I've been having with getting to LaVine today, and I don't know if it'll continue up to lock or not, but the issue I've been having is that Vooch is the same price point and projects better. And then you have a lot of value. Kobe White, about 0.8 DraftKings points per minute without DeRozan, should give you 30 plus minutes at 5,500. Given the lack of true value on this slate, that's going to make him look good. Alex Caruso, if he's in at 4,500, we don't know how many minutes he's playing, but I assume 25, 26, probably in the closing lineup. That's a reasonable value play. Patrick Williams getting 31% ownership at 3,900, quality value play. To soon move 4K, shooting guard, small forward, 5% owned, viable option. Torrey Craig at 4K, certainly a viable value. So what's kind of been happening for me is there's like 5 value pieces on the Bulls that I'm getting to. There's Vooch that I'm getting to from the raw projection standpoint, and LaVine's just kind of getting squeezed out. Not that I'm using any sort of like max 2 or 3 on the Bulls or something, but like you're just only going to get so many Bulls in a lineup. And so that's sort of been the problem is LaVine's just been the odd guy out for me. I would like that to change by lock just because like the stand on this slate that I want to take isn't, I don't want small forward Zach LaVine without DeMar DeRozan. That's not really where I'm comfortable being. But at the same time, I get why it's happening where Vooch just projects better and the value pieces are really useful. And it's like, okay, well, do I want a 6th Bull or is LaVine just going to kind of get kicked out?
Yeah, and I think too the dual position eligibility for him being shooting guard, small forward, at least for me, I think the other guys who are value plays are the same thing. So that's driving me a little bit away from a guy like Levine. But for a tournament, I think a lot of people will end up being driven the same way. Where if the value is shooting guard and small forward, people probably playing Levine a little bit less. So I think there's some theory to trying to get there, and certainly the field's going to be there at 20%. So maybe trying to at least match that might be a good move on this slate. We talked about Patrick Williams a little bit, just real fast. I guess as a value play, 3,900. Earlier in the day, he looked like he'd be mega chalk. Now he is just a fairly reasonable amount of chalk at 30%. Are you with Patrick Williams? I feel like the one position part of it makes it a little bit gross, but he's value. And I know you mentioned, value is value.
Yeah, the one position part makes it gross. The fact that it's Patrick Williams makes it gross, but it is what it is. Like, there's not a lot of value on this slate, and he is cheap. The minutes should be there. He's a 0.68 DraftKings point per minute guy so far this season. He's just another one of these guys where he's going to be out there. You hope he runs in the stats. He projects for 20 DraftKings points at 3,900. It's not going to take a lot to make him not that appealing in terms of value. Like, guys getting ruled out. The problem is just that DraftKings, and again, problem's not the right word because I actually enjoy it. I like it. But DraftKings has been so aggressive with the pricing that even like we're getting guys ruled out, and it's still just like, okay, well, there's not cheap guys even with them ruled out. So that's kind of the issue right now. It's just like Patrick Williams is one of the best sub 4K guys just because there's only a handful of them that are even going to play enough minutes to matter.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. And certainly a strategy to take to heart on this slate is that you just kind of hold your nose to some of the value guys for sure. And there's no 3K minimum dudes.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, no, you're all good. Go ahead.
The one thing looking at the ownership for the Bulls that I do think is really interesting is that, and again, like I think Patrick Williams projects ahead of Torrey Craig. I expect to get plenty of Patrick Williams, at least the way things look right now. I don't think there should be a 4-1 ownership advantage for Patrick Williams. He projects for 2 more points than Torrey Craig. He's $100 less. They're functionally the same play, like the same guy. Torrey Craig played 22 and a half minutes last game. Williams played 27, but you could get a game where they play the same minutes or Craig plays, more minutes. Like, it's not like it's set in stone that Patrick Williams has to play more minutes. Williams is a 0.68 fantasy point per minute guy. Craig's at 0.74. I feel like, and again, this isn't even like an endorsement of Craig. I think it's just more anti Patrick Williams, but like they're the same guy. And, if I have to play one, I'll go Patrick Williams, but I don't think that ownership gap should be as big as it is.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, Patrick Williams too, like all this talk in recent years about him making a jump, and he's just a 0.67 fantasy point per minute guy this year. Like, he's not making any sort of jump. Contributes a little bit in every category, but not enough to be anything meaningful. So as a chalk play, I'm with you. Like, I just think Patrick Williams is that guy. I'll get under the field, even based on the Sims before the show, and with more value opening up. I'd rather have a Beauchamp, I think, than a Patrick Williams, which might bite me in the ass, but that's how I'm feeling right now. Here's a game we can make some time up on here as we yield to the live before lock guys coming up at 6. We got Minnesota 109.5 implied points. Phoenix, a pretty good 115 point implied total for them. Minnesota side, I'm getting some talent. I would like to be getting more Anthony Edwards, who this year has started to pass the ball a little bit more, and also giving crap to Draymond Green, also going to be a thing that I always support for him. But these guys on the Timberwolves side, Adam, I feel like it's Edwards and Towns or bust, getting fractional amounts of Gobert and Kyle Anderson and Jaden McDaniels, but none of them are really doing a whole lot for me. And McDaniels, I assume, was full go again today after pulling out yesterday. But who's standing out to you for the Timberwolves, if anybody?
Towns looks good to me. I was getting a lot of him earlier. I don't see any reason that's going to change. 7,900 power forward. He's been about a 1.15, 1.2 fantasy point per minute guy this year. So another player that just, produces like Julius Randle, but is a little bit cheaper and not getting as much ownership. I don't totally get it. We have him with a 17% chance of being optimal. So he looks good to me. Gobert, if you get to him at center, is perfectly fine over a fantasy point per minute at 6,900. Not any sort of a priority. There are obviously a lot of good centers, but looks fine. Anthony Edwards, shooting guard, small forward, 8,900, 6% owned. Love whenever I can get to Edwards as a contrarian play. Like, that ceiling is just really high for him. About 1.3 DraftKings points per minute. Plus, he's just really fun to watch if you're sweating your games. But again, it's not like you're prioritizing him. He's just a very good way to round out a lineup if you need a low-owned, high-upside guy and can afford him. Kyle Anderson getting 10%, no real problem with that. Conley's price tag has finally jumped to 5,400. He's still okay, but he's not the same level of value that he had been when he was at like 4,800, 4,900. Only a 12 to 13% usage rate this year. Still a decent point per minute guy, around 0.85 fantasy points per minute. But, just not getting usage when you're playing with Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards. Jaden McDaniels, 4,500. Same situation we've been seeing a lot where not that he's a great player or anything, but you're getting 2.5 times the ownership to Kyle Anderson. I think they should be getting like the same ownership. They project about the same. They're priced about the same. Anderson does have small forward, power forward, but I think 10% to Anderson, 4% to McDaniels. It probably should be closer to just like 7% a piece, but that's not like it's a huge deal or anything.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And the Phoenix side, I'm not getting anybody in the sim I ran before the show. I guess I can make the case off of Booker based off the rates so far this year where did you know he's at a 59% assist rate on the year so far?
Who was that?
Devin Booker?
I did not.
He's at 59.4% assist rate, 32.3% usage, but Beal being in, Durant being in, price tag being where it is. I don't think I can get to Booker much here. Are you getting any Suns at all? Because I legitimately did get a single one in the sim.
No, I mean, if you were going to get there, I assume you would be getting to like Beal first at 7,100. And that's probably it. Like, even looking at optimal percentages, the only guy on this team on DraftKings above 2% is Beal at 4%. He's the only guy above 1% ownership. I said it this morning when I did the show with Josh, and there's nothing that makes me think it's going to change. Long story short, for my process is like I make a bunch of lineups and then have a way of filtering through and finding the ones that I think are the best to play. And I looked this morning when we were talking about Phoenix just to see like of the pool of lineups I made, how many had Devin Booker or Kevin Durant or Beal. Like 2% of the lineups I could even choose from had Beal. Less than 1% of the lineups I created had Durant or Booker. Like, I'm just not even going to have the opportunity most likely to get these guys in lineups.
Yeah, I think that's the way that I'm looking at it too. But again, Booker, kudos to him for what he's been doing between being banged up. Has put some good things on film. Sacramento coming up next, 118.3 implied points for them. De'Aaron Fox is the guy that jumps out the most to me here. Really, he's the only guy I'm getting a lot of. He's projected for 16% ownership by the field right now. I'm projected to be getting him in about half lineups. I don't know that's going to hold, but that's the Sims gave me to start the show. Besides that, getting a taste of Keegan Murray, a taste of Malik Monk, a little bit of Kevin Huerter, but not much to note. Are you getting any Sacramento Kings here in a matchup against the Lakers where LeBron supposedly going to be a game time decision with his calf heading into this one?
No, or sorry, yeah. We got a bunch of news, but like none of it was actual news. De'Aaron Fox, 8,300 looks very good. 16% ownership, 20% chance of being optimal. This is, one of the reasons why it's also difficult to pay all the way up for these guys. Like Luka at 12-1, great. Absolutely would love to get to Luka. He's $4,000 more expensive than De'Aaron Fox against the Lakers, not on a minutes restriction, on a slate where value is weak. And so it's just when you start thinking about it in terms of like 2v2s and 3v3s, you can put together your Luka team and then just drop Luka to De'Aaron Fox and see what you can do to the two worst pieces you had with Luka and how much better that lineup probably looks. That's sort of the issue you're running into. De'Aaron Fox looks really good. Outside of that, I don't think there's much from the Kings. JaVale McGee is getting the second most ownership on the team and has the second highest optimal percentage. I kind of mentioned it earlier, but like that's how ugly value is right now. JaVale McGee's probably playing like 10 or 11 minutes behind Domantas Sabonis, but he's 3K flat. He's a good point per minute guy. He opens stuff up. The problem is just it's still, when you're talking about somebody with like a 15 fantasy point projection, it's still a very specific slate that they're going to help you. Like for McGee to actually help you win a tournament, you either, assuming that like, Sabonis doesn't get in foul trouble or get hurt or anything, which would also be a path to McGee helping you win. But like, assuming McGee just plays his normal minutes, you just need him to have one of those games where he like gets 2 fantasy points a minute, which involves him probably blocking like 5 shots in 12 minutes. Or you need it to be JaVale McGee beats Patrick Williams and Torrey Craig and all that other garbage, and Luka scores 85.
Yeah, which, range of outcomes, it's there,
sure,
but not the highest. Yeah, I'm with you on that. So Lakers side of the equation, we have, again, questionable LeBron, certainly going to move things around. Late swap tool going to be very crucial for that one if we do see LeBron come out in this one. Anthony Davis came up a little bit for me in the Sims, but not very much. And not a single other Laker came up for me at all. But I guess you can maybe make a case for, I don't know, D'Angelo Russell or Austin Reeves, but really not that much. Anybody in the Lakers, can you make a case for them, Adam?
Not really. Not if those guys are in. Like, if LeBron were to end up sitting, obviously Anthony Davis looks better. The whole team looks better. But if Davis is in, if LeBron is in, it's really tough to get to them. I would just rather be playing Jason Tatum if I'm getting to that price range with Jaylen Brown out. If those guys are in, it's very difficult to get to them outside of, of course, like if you get LeBron James in a lineup, fine. But again, like I'd rather get Tatum. I mentioned it earlier. Jared Vanderbilt was showing up in the lineup generator. Like I don't think that's the spot I'm really going to get to. We have him at 15 DraftKings points. He's 3,100, power forward eligible. I don't know like why he's showing up though.
Also, some of the news that Adam mentioned, I'll just run through it real fast. OG Anunoby officially out. He was doubtful. Gary Trent out. Tobias Harris will play. Joel Embiid, a game time decision. And Robert Covington, all the fans out there of Covington, step back up, guys. He's starting in place of Nick Batum on Wednesday. So it's contrarian. Buy when there's blood in the streets, right? Place from Robert Covington. Don't really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, sorry. I was just going to say Vanderbilt, I don't think, Vanderbilt's still out, I think. So I don't even know why he's in our projections or why he's showing up.
Yeah, I don't. The lineup generator it works in mysterious ways, but it is a great tool for the most part. And obviously, as Adam mentioned earlier this morning as well, don't play the lineups at 2 p.m. because you get the data in later on in the day, and that's probably the case for the lineup generator as well. Last game on the slate, Cleveland, another crucial one. Now Darius Garland in this one. Donovan Mitchell going to be chalky, going to be projected for over 35% ownership by Stochastic. Karis LeVert, chalky, going to have over 30% ownership. Max Strus, fairly chalky, and a guy that looks like a very important play for me based on the Sims. Adam, I would say that Cleveland to me is probably the most important team, relative to what we did before the show. Obviously, things are going to move around a lot now, but getting a lot of Mitchell, a lot of Mobley, a lot of Strus, a lot of LeVert, not much Jared Allen. How do you feel about the Cavs? And I guess which plays would you prioritize?
Yeah, Cavs look great. They're one of the teams that has just looked good all day long. Obviously you have a few other teams opening up now where they also look good, but missing Darius Garland is just such a big piece. And it opens up a lot, both in terms of potential playing time and production. We have Mitchell pulling 36% ownership at 9,100. He looks very, very good. 22% chance of being optimal. You do have Dame in that range that is also, of course, missing Giannis. And then you do have other guys that can still beat Donovan Mitchell. Trae Young, Tyrese Maxey, Scotty Barnes, those guys we were talking about earlier. If you, in a given lineup, want to say, these guys shouldn't be 10-1 dogs to Donovan Mitchell, sure. But you should still be getting more Mitchell, in the aggregate than those guys. Karis LeVert's going to look very good. Shooting guard, small forward at 6,400. Max Strus, 5,600. Shooting guard, small forward also looks pretty good given the salary and the positions. For the season, 0.88 DraftKings points per minute for Strus, 1.35 for Mitchell. Just over a fantasy point per minute for LeVert. If you take Garland off the floor, 190 minutes for Mitchell, 1.36 DraftKings points per minute. Strus is at 0.8. LeVert 1.07. Any of these guys look fine. Jared Allen shouldn't really get any sort of bump from Garland being out. The playing time has been up and down. I think you expect around 27, 28 minutes here. It's still an interesting price tag in tournaments just because of the upside that Jared Allen does give you if he gets the minutes. But Mitchell, Mobley, LeVert, Strus, I think the guys that I'll be getting to first.
Yep, same page with you there. And Portland, a team that lowest implied total on the slate at 103.5. Obviously missing a lot of guys here. Malcolm Brogdon out today. Still have Scoot out for this one as well. We've seen a 40% assist rate for Skylar Mays on the year, so that's fun. But nobody here really stands out too meaningfully. I think you can get to Jeremy Grant sim-wise. I got a little bit over 5% of him. I guess a little taste of Tamani Kamara as well and Jabari Walker. But Adam, this is the final team to talk about here. Which Blazers do you want to cape for, or do you want to not do any of them?
Yeah, Brogdon out again, open stuff up, but salaries have moved. Skylar Mays coming in at 7K, Sharp's up to 7,800. Shooting guard, small forward's nice, but most of these guys not really getting ownership. The one spot that's really interesting and confusing to me, and I saw somebody mention it earlier, and I agree. Kamara started last game for Portland. He's 3,800 small forward, power forward. Why is he 7% owned if Patrick Williams is going to be 30% owned? Like, these guys are the same play. They're just guys they're going to play like mid-20s in minutes. Williams probably plays or could play a couple minutes more, but like they're not good point per minute guys. You're just hoping they run into stats while they're out there. The range of outcomes is about the same on all of these guys, and he's just not getting any ownership.
So I have to thank Adam for the good show. I also have to read this chat from Julian that made me laugh pretty hard. And Adam, I want you to know first, I think you look handsome and great today. Julian says, though, why is Adam dressed like the son of a bad guy in a John Wick movie? It's just hit the right note there. So good chat by Julian. But Adam will be here. Will not be here tomorrow, Adam, but you're going to the Ravens game. So I'm filling in for you tomorrow, and I get to do the show with Josh. So you get to see Lamar in person. That'll be fun.
Yes.
Lamar running, and Keaton Mitchell, the new hope for everybody. One last reader before we hop off and yield to the live before lock, guys. Guys, go check out the Stochastic Hall of Fame, or get to be a part of it, rather. Check out the videos between the various streams. But go to stochastic.com/avatar and download the avatar. And with all the great information that came out of the course of the show from Adam's mouth and maybe some from mine, you can maybe get to that pay window here. Tweet your wins at @StochasticHOF. You can win yourself a free month of any Stochastic package of your choice, up to a $200 value. You can only win once, though, so per year. So keep that in mind. But tonight's the night to do it, guys. A lot of chaos in the streets, lots going on. And here's going to be coming up next. Greg Ehrenberg, Neil Orfield, going to take you through it all on this very channel. So thanks to Adam. Follow him at Ship My Money DFS. Follow me at Chris Spags. And stay tuned for those guys coming up next. And enjoy your days. Good luck, guys. Bye.
We are back for another edition, a huge edition of the Stochastic Hall of Fame, coming at you hot, fresh off $1 million winner for one of our subs. And man, that is awesome. All you got to do to get involved. Now, he might not need a free sub anytime soon, but you want to get a free sub, $200 value, whether it's NBA, Sims package, everything, NFL, everything, up to $200 for the month. All you got to do, and to get inducted right here in the Stochastic Hall of Fame every single week, download the Stochastic profile picture at stochastic.com/avatar and tweet your wins to us at StochasticHOF. You finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, get a free month. Any Stochastic package you want, up to $200. And, of course, induction right here in the Hall of Fame. Let's get started. First up, Short Gamer TV. Wow. Or what a Sunday. Wow. Shout out to the Stochastic team and the Sims. Couldn't have done it without them. 1 million. Short Gamer TV took down the Millie yesterday. Obviously a very sharp dude, but utilizing the Stochastic tools, the Sims, all of it comes full circle. It's a beautiful thing. Shout out to Short Gamer TV. That has to be the greatest feeling in the world. $1 million win to kick off the week. Peter Hanley's back on the board. What's up, Peter? Got to get that free month and get to play a lot of NFL tomorrow. $13,000. Look at that three-way chop in the NBA Showdown fadeaway, followed by Maxwell Miller. Got second in the 65K NFL Spike on FanDuel yesterday. Thanks to all of you for helping me become a better DFS player. $3,000 win, second place for Maxwell. And Michael Yamada, multiple mini-mag. I love seeing these because remember, doesn't matter if you're entering 25-cent, 5-cent contest. Doesn't matter what you win. As long as you finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, no matter the contest, you're in. Free month and up here. Minimax takedowns on DraftKings and a three-way chop for first on Owner's Box. We've been seeing a lot of Owner's Box wins pop up lately. Thankful for the NBA Sims tool as well as the amazing content. Shout out to Michael for 4 takedowns there. Braden, think I'm finally figuring out how to get the word out, Stochastic. Finished second in the Minimax last Sunday at Owner's Box. Again, the tools, especially the Sims, are making a big difference for me this year. Congrats, Braden. And Michael Phillips, Stinger 22. $3,000 win. Sims tool already paying dividends. You love to see it. How about Kevin Cutler? Biggest win so far for me. Thanks to Stochastic and the usual suspects. Haven't even started working with the Sims yet either. Watch out. Let's see that name in lights again. $5,000 for Kevin Cutler yesterday. We keep going. Big ones this week. Brett Shoup, little late posting this one. Another hit due to the awesome Live Before Lock videos. The data is real, my friends. $5K for Brett as well. And Mike Marks, Stochastic Hall of Fame, 3 fire emojis, $250. Second place in the 5K Mini Max with Sean Geezy following up 2 in a row. Second out of 36K entries in the 15K Mini. Shout out to the crew as always. And then he had another one. He's up here a lot. Sean's up here a lot. Another Mini Max win. Shout out to Stochastic crew for the best tools in the game. $500 takedown there. We go to AJJ or AJ245, one or the other. Just shouting out the guys at Stochastic again. Best tools and best knowledge in the game. It's helped me become a better DFS player. $300 second in the 7.5K Mini Max for AJ. With Johnsy, how about this? Took down the Warriors versus Nuggets showdown, $15 slate. Thank you, Stochastic, for the tips. First place out of 11,700 entries. Some chops there, but we're throwing it up anyway because that's a nice $1,700 win. And we round this one out with Trappist Monk. Thanks to for the great show on Saturday featuring the sharp NHL minds of Slim Cliffy and Josh. Their insight and advice helped me build some nice lineups, one of which took down the 2K quarter jukebox. Appreciate all you guys putting these in, and congrats to everybody. You've now been inducted in the Hall of Fame. Welcome back if you've been here before. Go collect those free subs. Download the avatar if you don't have it. Use it wherever it is you play. We'll see you back here next week with some more winners.
On the last one.
No, that's funny. I am hosting. Welcome to Stokastic NBA Live Before Lock. I'm your host, Neil Orfield. You can find me on Twitter at PlayerQDFS. I'm here with my friend Greg Ehrenberg. You can find him on Twitter at G Ehrenberg. Is that correct, Greg?
That is my Twitter handle, and we've got Neil, who is lots of people had to step up today. Really appreciate everybody. Neil came in because Eric has once again been suspended. He decided to fly via Newark Airport, which is always a mistake. And is he suspended by me as his boss? Absolutely not. But he was suspended by an act of God who decided to delay his flight. Because if you fly out of Newark Airport, that is what is going to happen 100% of the time, is you're going to get delayed by hours on end, which is why Eric isn't here. So you stepped up. Spag stepped up also because Josh wasn't able to make it. And then also Bellman, he's been sick. So lots of guys stepping up. So appreciate you filling in tonight, Neil.
And it's my understanding that you and Eric actually got to go tip to tip physically yesterday, not just virtually. Is that correct?
Yep. And my brother was there too. It was a good time. Yeah.
That's like Power Rangers kind of thing, right? Like you touch all the tips at once. Isn't that similar to I didn't really watch Power Rangers growing up, but like I picture like they all have the beams. Is that like a thing? Your age demo? I
mean, we definitely powered up, but I don't know if it was.
Maybe that's not. Maybe I'm thinking of maybe it's not Power Rangers. Some other show that I'm thinking of. All right. Well, we can get into the NBA slate. Eric will be back tomorrow. Greg and Eric will be reunited on the show tomorrow. I'm assuming. We just got the news before the show started that RJ Barrett is out tonight, Greg. So we're gonna have to update our projections for that. We have a lot of injury news. I'll just read it out. We have out. So RJ Barrett just ruled out. Giannis ruled out. Malcolm Brogdon, DeMar DeRozan, Darius Garland, Jaylen Brown, Kristaps Porzingis, OG Anunoby, Gary Trent, Kelly Oubre, Wendell Carter Jr., Markelle Fultz, and there are more names on the out list, obviously, but those are some of the bigger names who are out. We still have questionable, I believe it was just called a game time decision, Joel Embiid, LeBron is questionable, Kyrie was ruled out, right?
Kyrie is out. He was questionable, tail end of a back-to-back. They ruled him out. So the players that we were really looking for the most updates from was going to be Kyrie Irving because he plays in the very first game, the locks of the night. Right. So the good thing here is we've got the Kyrie Irving news. We know he's out. We know Luka's going to look better. And now from here, that's the only game. And I'm going to double check to make sure that's the case. Yeah, that is the only game that locks at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Is that one game? Then there's the 3 7:30 games. Knicks Hawks. We just got the RJ Barrett news. Celtics 76ers. We got the Jaylen Brown and Kristaps Porzingis both being out. We're waiting on Joel Embiid. And then we also know from Milwaukee that Giannis is going to be out. So just that one Joel Embiid piece, but we've got most of the early news already behind us.
Yeah, nice to have that news so we can, start running the sims and, it's going to be accurate at this point when we have all of our updated projections. I'm not sure if we have RJ Barrett updated just yet, but that'll be momentarily, not something that I'm concerned about coming up before lock. I forgot to mention, by the way, first of all, while you're coming in, please do like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you haven't already done so, hit the notification button so you can get alerts when our shows go live. And this show is sponsored by Vivid Picks, which is a pick'em site where we have a $300 first match deposit bonus. So a lot of sites, you're going to get $100 first match deposit bonus. Today, we have Vivid Picks, which is just like all the other pick'em sites. So if you're playing on Underdog, Prize Picks, all the other pick'em sites, it's the same thing where you're looking at a stat line, you're choosing either the over or the under. You're choosing your favorites from a list of different props, taking the over or the under. The difference here is you're probably not already signed up for it, so you can still get your first deposit matched. And in this case, it is up to $300. So fantastic deal with Vivid Picks. Love that picture of Greg. I think this is my first time actually seeing this promo of you, Greg. I don't know why we're not still using that old Eric promo that we love, that picture that everybody loves so much except for Eric. But I like this one. I like this one that you're in as well, Greg. Sign up for Vivid Picks. Jordan will put the link in the description into chat. on YouTube if he has not already done so. So check it out if you haven't. It's a fantastic deal. Anytime you can get these new first match deposits, especially when it's up to like $300, you got to take advantage of those. So check it out if you haven't already done so. So this is my first time doing a live before lock with you this year, Greg. We did plenty of them last year, but I think we should start just going position by position. Does that sound good to you? We'll start talking about some of our favorite point guard plays, or actually, do you want to give a little overview of the slate? Like, do you think this is going to be a boom bust kind of slate? Or sorry, a stars and scrubs kind of slate? Do you think it's going to be a more balanced slate? How do you anticipate this one working out?
Sure. So it always changes so much over the course of the day. So earlier when I was building lineups, it was much more balanced, but as often happens with NBA slates, players get ruled out. And what happens? Well, a couple of things happen. Players like Luka projects a lot better because Kyrie Irving's out. Jason Tatum projects a lot better because we've got guys now like Kristaps Porzingis and Jaylen Brown out. So what happens? We've got these studs that are more desirable to get to, but then also because these other players are out, there's more value options that are available, which makes it easier to pay up for those guys. So to me, like most NBA slates that are fairly significantly sized, it is another stars and scrub slate. And that is what almost every NBA slate ends up being, even if it doesn't look like in the morning, typically ends up being at night. And this is another one of them.
Okay. So I was just looking through our top point per dollar plays on looking in Fantasy Cruncher just to see our top point per dollar plays. I was sort of surprised to see that we don't have any like screaming value plays. Like sometimes you have star players out, you're going to get players that are like projected for like 8x their salary, something like that. The best players right now, point per dollar, are kind of some pay up options. So we'll have to talk out the value options a little bit because they're not really like screaming values like, you know, a $3,500 point guard who's going to be projected for 40 fantasy points. So we don't have that kind of value, but we can still find some value, as you said, with plenty of stars out in this game. So we'll talk about the value options as we're talking about the different positions. Starting with, let's start with just point guards. Who do you think you're going to be getting to the most at point guard, and who are your favorite values here?
Sure. So I do have lineups that are updated through the Sims for everything other than the Knicks news. The Knicks news is going to change some stuff, but I don't think it's going to change like all that much. So when we're going through the players that I'm prioritizing the most now, I don't really think that that's going to change. But one thing that I would certainly be remiss if I did not bring up at the top of the show, in the YouTube chat, John Gotti yesterday, we're getting towards the tail end of the show. We're going through some favorite players that Eric and I had gotten to as we were doing final runs of lineups. And actually it was myself and Bellman. And we had John Gotti in chat guaranteed yesterday that Draymond Green would get ejected. And we're like,
I saw you post that.
You can't just predict somebody's going to get ejected. Not only did Draymond get ejected, he got ejected 90 seconds into the game. It's the greatest prediction that's ever happened on this YouTube channel. So I wanted to make sure to shout out John Gotti because no matter what it is here that I end up saying is like a pretty good option or guys that I have takes on today, it will pale in comparison to what John Gotti did yesterday. This is what John Gotti's been doing. A lot of people think John Gotti's been missing all these years. That is not the case. He's been inspecting what's been happening with Draymond Green and his ejection schedule.
And he's in chat right now. Sadly, I don't think there's probably no like prop market for is this player going to be ejected, but you could just take the unders, I suppose, is the way to bet that. So hopefully John Gotti did take all of Draymond's unders because at the point that happened, 0 points had been scored in the game. I finally have a team to hate in the NBA. I know a lot of people have always hated the Warriors. For those that don't know, I'm a big Timberwolves fan. I honestly have not historically hated the Warriors. I don't think that I've never thought of them as being like an extremely unlikable team until recently. It's gotten chippy over the past couple of years with the Timberwolves and the Warriors. I hate the Warriors. That's the team that I want to just tank. I want Draymond to just suck, to continue to suck because I don't think he's really that great anymore. Anyway, finally, a team that I can just outright hate in the NBA. A lot of Timberwolves fans hate the Lakers. I've never really hated the Lakers. They've never been that great. They won a championship recently, but like in the years that I've been a fan of the NBA, they weren't like the Kobe Lakers where they're dominating every single year. So I've never really hated the Lakers. Finally, I can hate on the Warriors. But yeah, congrats. Well done, John Gotti. Hopefully you made some bets that actually paid off for you.
And right. The way, before we go a little further, because people are saying, and you had brought up like, well, what do you do with that information? Well, number one, it's kind of hard to be convicted in your ejection calls, but you got to go out. You do the same game parlay and you take all the unders for the same player, go under points, under rebounds, under assists. He gets ejected in 60 seconds and it pays out pretty big. There's actually a big story that had happened a couple of years ago was there was news that came out that it was Clay's first game back from injury, and Draymond was hurt at the time, but Draymond wanted to be on the court because Clay was coming back. So what Draymond ended up doing was on the court for the first play, and it was reported that was going to happen, but the sports books were slow to react to the news. So people had these outrageous, massive parlays. They took all the alternate lines of Draymond and took the unders on all of them and had these tickets. They were paying out like 50, 60 to 1. And it became this like whole big thing about whether DraftKings should pay out the tickets or not. And eventually the books ended up paying it out. But Draymond strikes again.
I remember that. I don't remember much in sports betting since I can't do it here in Minnesota, but I do remember that controversy a little bit. Too Nice says John Gotti died 20 years ago. Greg, you are thinking of Jimmy Hoffa missing. LOL. No, he's not, because John Gotti is right here in chat, so he clearly did not die 20 years ago. Hate to say it, Too Nice, but in this case, I don't know
what you're talking about. John Gotti's right here.
I see him in chat right now.
He's fixing basketball games, John Gotti.
Yeah, he's right here. You're totally wrong about that. All right, point guard, Greg. So just looking at the top, I mean, Luka is a pretty clear point guard play. We don't have him projected for that much ownership, but with Kyrie out, he is actually let's sorted by value. Luka is the sixth best value right now, point per dollar on the entire slate. 12,100 Luka is the sixth best point per dollar play on the slate. That's pretty insane. But that's just setting you up to just tell me about who you think you're going to be playing a lot of at point guard today.
Luka was my most rostered player for about 90 seconds. What happened is I ran lineups after Kyrie got ruled out, got everything updated, ran it through the Sims, came out Luka is my most rostered player. Right after that, Jaylen Brown and Kristaps Porzingis get ruled out. I rerun lineups, still getting to a lot of Luka, but he is no longer my most rostered point guard, because what ended up happening via that Celtics news is I got to a lot of Jason Tatum, but then also these other point guards from the Celtics ended up popping up. So the actual guys who I'm prioritizing at point guard, while Luka is still one of them on the high end, I do have more exposure to Derek White and Drew Holiday than Luka right now. And points per dollar, Luka's really good. I'm going to have a lot of lineups that have 3 point guards in them. One in the point guard spot, one in the guard spot, then potentially one in the utility spot. And some of these guys also, point guard and shooting guard eligibility can end up being in both those spots.
Okay. Yeah, I'm rerunning the Sims right now for myself. I don't know if there's an easy way to check if we have RJ Barrett out. I'll probably just be able to tell from my...
We do. I can tell you just from our projections.
Okay. Cool. So we've got RJ Barrett out. Yeah, I'm rerunning the Sims right now, but I would imagine it's the same thing. I mean, just looking across our top point per dollar plays, Drew Holiday is actually ahead of Luka on that list, as is Derek White. Drew Holiday projecting for just under 40 fantasy points at 6,900. We have Derek White just under 34 fantasy points at 6,000. So both look like slightly better values than Luka Doncic. And honestly, it is a little bit hard to get to Luka on this slate, because as I said, like we do have some value. It's just not like incredible value at the low end. Maybe that'll open up. Let me ask you this, Greg. Are you doing anything in your lineups for the players that are still questionable? Embiid, LeBron, Kyrie, Schroeder, and Caruso. Are you doing anything ahead of time to factor in that like maybe some other players are going to become better plays?
Not really. This is why, though, because like I can't avoid Luka in the first game, right? We got this Washington Dallas game, which has an absurd total. The total is 242.5 points. Kyrie Irving's out, so Luka looks really good. And then once you get past that game, the next game that locks is going to be that 76ers game. So I don't really feel like I have to do a whole ton to prepare for that, just because there's only one game that locks in the first slot. We've already got a lot of the injury news. So I think I can kind of just let it play as it comes, getting to a good amount of Luka. I don't really have a ton of other Dallas players. Actually, that's not true. I have a good amount of Josh Green. So those are two guys that I can't do without Luka Doncic and Josh Green. Then there's other guys who have in like a couple lineups here or there, but there's nothing else from that first game that I really have a massive amount of outside of Luka and Josh Green. And then from there, we'll just let the new injury news play out and see what happens with Embiid.
Yeah, and we've got the late swap tool now in the simulator, so we can just late swap as necessary when the time comes. As Josh Gillum just pointed out, we did get the news that Alex Caruso is in, so nothing that we need to do there. I believe we already have Caruso in our projections. Yeah, we've already got him projected, so we don't need to change anything. That makes things a little bit easier for us, having Alex Caruso ruled in. All right, so just looking at as far as players under, let's say under 5,000 at point guard, Who's your favorite, Greg?
Let's see. What is the actual price point on these guys for point guard? So if we're going cheaper at point guard, I'll sort by my exposures. So Derek White and Drew Holiday both over that mark. So if we're going below it, the answer for me is Peyton Pritchard. And I mean, we see his minutes kind of get jerked around a lot, Pritchard, where sometimes like, oh, there's guys out. You'd expect him to be somebody who plays a bunch for the Celtics. And then other times it's like, oh, I didn't really expect anything from Peyton Pritchard. And he randomly played 22 minutes and had a pretty big game. But with the Celtics being shorthand with both Jaylen Brown and Kristaps Porzingis out, this isn't just one guy that's out. I think the Celtics are going to be forced to play some smaller lineups at times. And that's where Peyton Pritchard, I think, sees a little bit more secure minutes. We don't have him projected like crazy high or anything. We have him projected for right around 19 fantasy points. But considering how strong some of the payoff options are on this slate, that's enough for Peyton Pritchard to be a cheap option that I am getting to.
Okay. I see Jordan Klein is about to put up on the screen player compare tool, I assume is what he's doing, because we got a question from Jay Bravo asking position aside, Luka or Tatum to score more DraftKings points. So Jordan Klein, I believe, just said he's going to put that up on screen. Greg, I think I have, can I see it? Oh, I can see it. I can see it on the screen. Yesterday, or for whatever reason, I couldn't see what Jordan was putting up on the screen.
Were you wearing your glasses?
I was just, I was hearing Lofty talking about what he had on the screen, and I'm looking at my Zoom and I'm just seeing Jordan Klein. It was very confusing for me. I'm a little bit of a boomer, so I didn't understand what was happening. It was very scary. Okay, Jordan's back on the screen now. I didn't even get to okay, we got Luka projected significantly better than Jason Tatum, which I guess I could have known that anyway, just looking at our projections. But yeah, Luka projected for 11 fantasy points more than Jason Tatum. So from a raw fantasy points perspective, Luka much better. In NBA DFS, I'm probably never leaving 2,000 on the table though, Greg. So it's not like this 1-for-1 swap is not a swap that I would make regardless. Like I'm going to be upgrading elsewhere if I am playing Tatum. But there's your answer. Luka projects much better than Tatum. Let me see if we have any super chats that we didn't get to. I know that we had one. All right. I don't remember which of these are from the prior show. Jordan, was Riley Cooper was that one answered on the last show?
They're all ours.
Okay, they're all ours. All right. So our first question, Riley Cooper, and appreciate all of you, but starting with Riley Cooper 14 asks, Dosunmu or Pat C? Thanks. Pat
All right.
C.
So he wants to know about Io, Dosunmu, or Pat Connaughton.
Okay.
All right. So let's see. Dosunmu, Pat Connaughton.
And Jordan, could you maybe throw the player compare back up for this?
Let's see what I have in here. And then I can see if it aligns with what we got in the player compare tool. So I've got Pat Connaughton here, right around 18 fantasy points, and the other one was Io. Very similar also. So I'm going to go towards Pat Connaughton here, and it's very, very, very close in our head-to-head and what we're looking at here. The one reason I go a little bit more towards Pat Connaughton is because we just found out that Alex Caruso is going to be in. If Caruso was out, this would have been an easy Io Dosunmu. And I do think that part of the reason that Riley Cooper might have been asking is because he was, thinking there was a possibility that Alex Caruso was going to be out, which make Dosunmu look better. Either way, it's very, very close. I think it's a total coin flip as it's showing right here in our player compare tool, but I'm getting to more exposure to Pat Connaughton.
Yeah, and you can see Connaughton has better boom odds and better odds of not busting. So just looking at the player compare tool, I am with you. I would go with Pat Connaughton there. All right, next we have Ace of Spades asking for his usual question. Greg, can you guess what Ace of Spades question is?
Yes, he wants to know what I'm having for dinner tonight.
Of course, that's exactly what Ace of Spades wants to know every night. But while you're answering what you're having for dinner, maybe we can look up some DK tiers also.
Yeah, not sure what I'm having for dinner. In tier 1, though, Luka Doncic is available in tier 1. So a pretty obvious answer there. Projects better than anybody else on the slate. Tier 2, that is going to be Anthony Davis for me. It's very close between him and LeBron. And I do think you can make an ownership case where if the game gets pretty close to lock and LeBron ends up getting ruled in, maybe you go from AD to LeBron. But the answer for me, just from a projection standpoint, is Anthony Davis. And you have the possibility LeBron is either limited or ends up sitting out today, which would be even more reason to lean towards AD there. So AD in tier 2. Tier 3, another pretty close one. And It's funny because who would have thought that you would have this kind of question before the year started? Scotty Barnes versus Kevin Durant. Those are the two really close ones in this tier. I'm going to lean towards Scotty Barnes. How often do we see this, Neil, where there's like a superstar type team that gets put together and it takes a little bit of time to work out the chemistry? Like, people are really shitting on the Clippers right now, and the Clippers might not end up being a great team, but I don't know how anybody could have expected them with that many players that require the ball in their hands from to figure it out right away from game one. And I don't know how long it's going to take the Suns also to figure it out with Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal. I think it's a complicated scenario, and it's going to take them some time. Hopefully they all stay healthy for them to work out the chemistry. So with that in mind, I'm going to lean towards Scotty Barnes when him and Kevin Durant are projecting pretty similarly. Tier 4, that is Donovan Mitchell for me with Darius Garland out. Tier 5, that is Nikola Vucevic for me. That is with DeMar DeRozan out. And then in tier 6, I'm going to Zach LaVine. That is also because of DeRozan resting.
All right. So in the conversation of superstar teams taking a little while to gel, I would compare it to like last year's Timberwolves. You know, nobody knew how it was going to work with Karl Anthony Towns, Rudy Gobert. Took a season to kind of get there, and now they're the best team in the NBA. So maybe the same thing will happen next year for the Suns or the Clippers. All right. Corey Shea, how much JaVale McGee is too much?
How much JaVale McGee is too much? So I have some exposure to him, and earlier in the day, I was getting to a ton of him, and I thought I would ultimately end up with like none of it by the time the slate started. And I'm still getting to some, like not all that much. I would say if you have, I don't want to give a number that's above the actual number I have right now, because I need to still run one more lineup update. But I would say like if you're well north of 20%, you've probably made a mistake. If you just have like lineups here and there where you're taking a chance on JaVale McGee, if you're playing single entry, he would not be in that lineup. If you're playing like 10 lineups and he's in one or two of them, I don't think that's really all that big of a deal. But if you're way more than that, I think it's problematic.
I'm trying to find JaVale's optimal odds. I just refreshed. He was before I refreshed, he was projected for 10% ownership, 15% chance of being optimal. I'm curious if how that has changed, because we have had, so in the boom bust right now, we have JaVale still projected for just over 10% ownership with a 13% chance of being optimal, a 6% chance of booming. Do you think is JaVale McGee your favorite min price option on DraftKings? I know you're not really looking at the salaries in the
single
Sims.
Player that's exactly min price, but let's see. Min price.
He is our highest point per dollar. He's just a 5x value. We're projecting for 15 fantasy points. That is the best projection of any min price player. The downside being that he's only center eligible.
Yeah, I don't really think he has a lot of competition. Like most
doesn't appear to. Yeah.
Like there aren't good cheap options to go to. Like he's the answer by just default. There's nobody else on this slate that's min. I don't even think there's another guy on the slate that's min price that I've projected for double digit fantasy points here.
Seth Curry is one that we have projected for. We have him projected for 12.79 fantasy points. So a couple fantasy points worse than McGee.
Yeah, it's McGee by default, but it's nobody who's going to really, be somebody you want to get to. Here's actually probably the biggest benefit to having JaVale McGee in some lineups is he plays in the last time slot of the night, that 10 p.m. game. So there's definitely a possibility that if you have some lineups, like 10, 15% JaVale McGee, if more news breaks over the course of the night, he's somebody who you would definitely see swapping out for a better value play. Should, Embiid get ruled out, or should LeBron get ruled out or something?
Yep. All right. That's a good point. And then final super chat. Corey Williams asks, Kuzma or Avdia? He says Avdia allows upgrade to Mobley. Do you have a preference between Kuzma or Avdia? And this is another one, Jordan Klein. Would you mind bringing back up the player compare tool?
Well, the player compare tool isn't going to help a ton with this because it's like totally different price ranges.
Okay.
Right?
Never mind, Jordan.
Yeah. Kuzma is 8,100. Avdia is 6,200.
Yeah.
And I'm currently underweight to both of them. I have slightly more of Kyle Kuzma, but neither one of these guys are people who I'm going out of my way to play on this slate. Earlier in the day, they looked better, and then other players got ruled out. Now there's just other guys in like the mid-range or the upper mid-range that I'm prioritizing. But if it has to be one or the other, I think that Kuzma is a slightly better option for the slate. But like I said, underweight to both for me.
Yeah. All right. And then we had a last, Einsteinium in Discord asked you, Greg, looking at the tools, I understand the Mitchell ownership but should he have 10x more ownership? What do you think of Donovan Mitchell? I assume he's talking about Donovan.
10x more ownership. Let's see. Should he have? I mean, it can't be 10x because he's projected for like 30+% ownership. So it can't be 300%.
Just be impossible in that case.
Let me see. Did he mean plus 10%?
He may have just been exaggerating and saying, shouldn't he be more owned? But should he have 10? He said 10x. Yeah, I don't know.
So here's the reason
he's typing
why.
Right now.
Think about the high end, right? If you're going to say that Mitchell should be way more popular than he is, it has to come at the expense of a Luka Doncic or Jason Tatum. We just got a lot of good pay-up options on the slate.
Yeah, true. I know Unsigning is typing right now, but I'm going to keep scrolling down, see if I can catch any other questions. Kepenakela wants to know, who's the one guy you're playing in DK single entry, Greg?
The one guy. Well, with the way that it works with the lineups, I'm playing more than one guy in single entry. I'd be at a massive disadvantage if I was only playing one player in single entry. But let's see, what's the best way for me to approach this question tonight? So I just reran everything for the updates of the Knicks. So let me see what my actual exposures are. And then I could find out who it is that I am getting to a good amount of that is like modest ownership. I think the answer might be Luka. Luka isn't projected to be crazy popular tonight.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that was going to be my answer, but kind of as a joke because he just projects 10 points better than anybody else. So if you can only play one, it would be Luka for me. But yeah, he's just like an objectively great play anyway. Like great matchup with Washington. They don't play much defense. They play at a fast pace, so it's a great spot. I missed a super chat, Greg. So let me get back to this super chat. Apologies to Anthony Maniaci. Hopefully I got that right. He says, Greg, if you're playing one lineup on DK, who is your center? Please and thank you. You're the man.
Okay, who is my center? If I'm playing one lineup on DK, well, the center that I have the most exposure to in the lineups I just ran is Julius Randle, who has center eligibility. So I would say Randle. If it's somebody who's just a pure center, that isn't like a power forward center, then it's Vooch for me.
Okay. We got another super chat now from John Good asking, and this one might be a player compare one, Jordan, Strus or Hart on DraftKings. And Greg, I'll ask you the same thing. Max Strus or Josh Hart on DraftKings.
All right. Max Strus or Josh Hart?
Yep.
All right. That for me, Strus or Hart, it's so close. So my top 150 lineups, Neil, 50 of them have Strus 50 have Strus, 47 have Hart. So it is so close between the two. If salary is no issue for you, because Hart is like slightly more expensive, I'll say Hart. But two guys that I'm going to be getting to, the two Knicks that I ended up getting to the most are Josh Hart and Julius Randle. And I don't have any other Nick more than 10% of my lineups.
All right. So it's a very good question. You said that you came down on the Hart side of it?
Yes.
Okay. Hill Money, excuse me, guys. Hill Money asks, besides Covington, any players around 4K? And he says no centers. So I think he's asking any players who are not centers around 4K. And he says FanDuel / DraftKings. So maybe he wants an answer for both sites. Any players around 4K? All right, let me look. And you can, I'll ask you the question. I'll look it up at the same time.
So sorry, just repeat the question one more time.
He wants players around 4K who are not centers on DraftKings and FanDuel, and not Robert Covington.
Okay, so it can't be Robert Covington. So this is somebody who was very upset at whatever Robert Covington did last night, which is play like
a lot of people were.
Shit. Lots of people were upset about Bob Covington last night.
I've got one if you want me to. We have the best point per dollar play at 4,000 is Josh Green. Just projects for 21.4 fantasy points at 4,000. So that would be the one that is popping out to me as the best value around 4,000. Do you have somebody else in mind, Greg?
So Josh Green is the one at 4,000 I have the most exposure to. If we're going a little bit cheaper, I think Peyton Pritchard is serviceable. If we're going to go even cheaper than that, Patrick Williams is projecting decently, although with that said, I think he's a little bit overowned on the slate, so I'm slightly underweight to him. But yeah, those are the guys. And then, I mean, another one like Marjan Beauchamp, another player who projects okay, but I'm also underweight to him. Get exposure to him, but I think he's a little bit too popular. So those are the guys that I would single out for DraftKings. If we go ahead and look at FanDuel. All right, so same deal, 4K. And did he give?
He did say 4K for both.
Can't be a center.
Yeah.
Just can't be a center. All right, so if we're looking around 4K, no center though. No center. No Robert Covington. But Josh
he says because he's going with Vooch, so that's why he says no center.
Okay. So Josh Green is 4,300 on FanDuel. If that counts as around 4K, he's still a strong option there.
Seems to me that it would count as around 4K. Yeah, I had not actually looked closely at FanDuel, so now I'm just pulling up the FanDuel stuff. Yeah, Josh Green is the top point per dollar. If you need under 4K,
3,800. The cheap options are not nearly as strong on FanDuel as they are on DK. So I would say Desunmu being one at $3,800, Josh Green at 4,300. If it has to be more players who are sub 4K, Peyton Pritchard's also 4K on FanDuel, but doesn't look as good at 4K on FanDuel. He's at $3,600 on DK, but those are the guys that I would say around 4K that I like the most on FanDuel.
Okay. Corey Williams wants to know what's the one game to stack for GPPs tonight on DraftKings.
Do I have a game that well, if Joel Embiid doesn't play, the answer is pretty clearly Celtics 76ers.
Yeah.
Because you've already got all this Celtics value, and then you'd also be adding a bunch of potential exposure to Sixers guys on the other side. Let me think if there's any other game that I'm really getting to a lot of both sides of, because I feel like what most of this slate is there's like one side of games that I like, but not necessarily both sides. But yeah. I'll give that as my answer for now is Sixers Celtics.
Yeah, it's like I'm looking at it, like 3 of our top 5 values right now are Jason Tatum, Jrue Holiday, and Derek White, but there's not any Sixers players that really stand out as great values. So then I'm like, if Embiid is out, maybe I'm a little bit worried about a blowout. But then at the same time, that would kind of make game stacking make a little bit more sense, because if you're going to be playing those Boston guys, you're hoping it keeps close. Maybe you want some Philly guys in there. So I think that's a great answer. Is the Boston Philly game is probably where I would go with that question. Also, I think that does it for. Oh, Hills, appreciate you. Says thank you. Y'all really are the GOAT. No, you're the GOAT. Hill money. Thank you. All right. I think that does it for all of our super chats for the moment, Greg. So we can move back to. I guess I was scrolling through the Discord questions, and we had a few more of them. One of them being, is Dante Exum in play tonight?
It's not in any of my lineups, so I hope not.
Okay, so hopefully not, DJ. Iron Maiden 2 asked, Greg, thoughts on Cat as a pivot off the chalky 8K bigs?
Yeah, I have Cat in 20% of my lineups tonight, so I could get behind that for sure. So Karl-Anthony Towns, who was taking some heat on Twitter earlier, I thought for really stupid reasons.
I did too.
Because people are like, hey, how could Draymond Green get Rudy Gobert in a rear naked choke and Cat doesn't do anything about it? My response to that is, he scored 33 points and had 11 rebounds, and they won the game last night. To me, that's doing something about it. If you go out and you do like a Draymond Green, you try to retaliate, and it's like, hey, look, I kicked Draymond Green in the balls. He gets suspended from the game. The Timberwolves end up losing. Karl-Anthony Towns gets suspended. Like, how helpful is that to your team? To me, the best way to get back at Draymond Green is to kick his team's ass when he's not on the court. So to me, I did think that Karl-Anthony Towns got some retribution for Rudy Gobert just by playing well for that game. But yeah, I do like Karl-Anthony Towns on the high end as a pivot off to some other guys.
Yep, agreed. Greg, my computer just froze for a second. Like you froze, and I was like, "Oh no, we lost Greg." And then I realized it was my internet connection. This hasn't happened to me in months. I swear, it's whenever I'm on shows with Greg. I've been doing so many shows. This has not been happening, and now suddenly. But I am back.
Something really funny just happened where there was like a little bit of lag, and then all of your words caught up at once. So it was like for a very short amount of time, it was like, oh, this is what Neil is like on speed.
That's funny because the same thing happened to me with you. So I think it's my internet connection. So you were like out catching up all on your words, and then I talked, and that's funny that's happening. But we are back. We are good. I got distracted by that. I had a point that I wanted to make, something I wanted to say, and then I thought it was stupid because Cat was actually like trying to pull Draymond Green off of him too. Like, what more did he want him to do? He was doing the best he could to stay in the game while protecting his teammate. I thought it was stupid. So I'm with you on that, and I'm actually not, as I'm a big Timberwolves fan. I'm not always the biggest Cat supporter the way I am with Ant, who I just absolutely love. But I just thought that was a stupid narrative, and Cat has been pretty decent recently. So happy to see that. By the way, Einstein was asking, should Donovan Mitchell be 30x or 10x the ownership of Scotty Barnes is what the question was. Do you have any thoughts on, do you think Donovan Mitchell should be 10x the ownership of Scotty Barnes?
Do I think Donovan Mitchell should be 10x the? Oh, okay. Gotcha. Well, I could tell you that based on my lineups, I am not getting to Scotty Barnes exposure really, and I am getting to Donovan Mitchell. So I'm going to say yes, that does make sense to me.
Okay. Mar Like It says, I think Neil just talks fast. I've never been accused of talking fast. I don't think I'm a particularly slow talker either, but I don't think I'm a fast talker. I could be totally wrong about that.
For that brief period of time, you were the world's fastest talker, Neil.
I'm proud of that distinction. All right. Sam Cassell Dance asked, Greg, do you think there are any must-have players in the first game for a single entry contest?
Must-have? No. I would say that the closest is Josh Green. I would say Josh Green is pretty close to a must-have, but if you don't have him, I don't think that you have to alter your lineups to force him in. And I would say Luka is would like to have player, but also not a must. Yeah.
For single entry, I mean, Josh Green isn't that great of a value. So I wouldn't call anybody a must have in that first game. Cream asks, all of my Fox exposure turned into Luka in the Sims. Should I rerun and bring down the Luka exposure?
So I'm still getting to, I have exposure to Fox, but I do have more of Luka, right? Like I don't look at when this happens, right? Where players get ruled out, other players become available. What's often going to happen is it's going to flatten some of your exposure. If you get into a bunch of Fox before as a pay up option, same like what happened to me, I mentioned before, for about 90 seconds, Luka was my most rostered player. And then what happens? Other players get ruled out. Other guys become priorities like Jason Tatum, and it comes down. I don't view that as an issue. You want to be reacting to the news. You don't want to try to rewind your lineups to make them more similar to the before the news came out.
Yep. That's all right. Corey Randall asked, I mean, if you're playing 150 and you were getting 0 Fox, then like I would in that case do something. But yeah, in general, I'm on the same page. Like when you get news, you want to react and like hope that other people are not reacting to that news the way that you will if you're using the Sims. Corey Randall asked, thoughts on Bilal Kulabi from Washington.
Koulibaly is how his name is. Yes. So thoughts on Koulibaly. He has shown interesting upside. I think he was the 7th pick in the draft, if I remember correctly. And he clearly has fantasy potential. We've seen it a couple of times over the course of the last couple of weeks now. But here's the problem with Koulibaly. Let me pull him up here. So we now have Koulibaly priced all the way up to $4,500. We've been projected right around 20 fantasy points. So before, if you were playing Koulibaly when he was, $3,900, I know that people might think like, what's the difference between $4,500 and $3,900? And to be, an asshole, I would say, well, $600. But that matters a lot in DraftKings, DFS, FanDuel, anything that's, really pricing dependent. Because if you got 20 fantasy points out of Koulibaly when he's priced sub 4K, that's a way different result than getting 20 fantasy points out of him when he's priced at $4,500. And another thing too, is you look at some of his results, some of it has been result of foul trouble or blowout sort of scenarios. Daniel Gafford got hurt during one game. So he's coming off the bench on a slate of this size. He's not somebody I'm getting to.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think I'm getting into any Koulibaly either. Like, I think he's a fine 2% projected ownership option if you're playing a bunch of lineups, but he's not somebody that's a priority for me in any sense. Scott H asked, pick two, Cat or Vooch, and Hauser or Boucher.
Okay, so that is Hauser for me and Vooch.
Yep, I think same answer for me. I hate to say it, I love my Cat, but Vooch is in such a great spot against the Magic with no Wendell Carter Jr. and no DeMar DeRozan that it's going to have to be Vooch there. All right, so we are caught up on super chats. Let me get back to other questions. We didn't do the position by position thing, Greg, because we're getting a lot of questions, and I think I want to be able to answer these questions. All right. JEW asks, if you were making 4 lineups for all the DraftKings single entries, what players would you go 100% on across 4 lineups?
All right. So, sorry, can you repeat that one more time?
If you're making 4 different lineups for the 4 different single entries on DraftKings, are there any players that you would have in 100% of those 4 lineups?
I don't know. So the player I'd have the most of, and this is based on like what I'm doing over the course of 150 lineups, I could say I'd probably have like 2 of them would have Josh Green in them. 2 of them would have Jason Tatum. I'd probably have 2 with Drew Holiday. I'd probably have 2 with Derek White. I don't know if there's anybody I'd be 100% on though, because there are so many good options to go to on this slate.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, same page. Like, this is not the kind of slate where there's anybody who's like a must-have across all those lineups. So I don't think I would have 100% of anybody either. All right. Excuse me. Jets World wants to know your top 4 DraftKings cash plays.
Okay. So if I'm just talking about cash plays for today, Bobby Portis, Julius Randle, Josh Green, Drew Holiday.
Yep. All some of the top point per dollar plays on the day. Heflove wants says Hauser seems to have a good floor if he starts. No, I'd say yes. Hauser has a good floor if he starts. Do we have the starting?
Although with that said, I do not expect him to start today.
Okay, so if he does start, that'll up his floor a little bit. Kevin Cash app wants to know Pritchard and Ant or Cat and Cam Reddish.
The Cat side.
Cat and Cam Reddish over Pritchard and Ant. Okay.
I mean, it's tough because I don't love Cam Reddish for this slate, but there is the chance that LeBron sits and then he would project a lot better.
True. Good point. Lou wants to know Levine or Banchero.
That is Levine for me.
I don't think I answered this question. The super chat from Johnsy for his 6-month membership asks Pritchard and Strauss or Hart and Beauchamp. Pritchard and Strus, sorry. Max Strus.
I'm pulling up the question on my computer so I could look at the...
Is this something, Jordan, we could use the player compare tool for? Can we do a 2v2?
So it is going to be... we can use the player compare tool. This one's going to be close to... So Jordan, it's Max Strus and Peyton Pritchard on one side. Oh, it's funny. You actually had one of the players in there and you just took him out. Peyton Pritchard. And then Josh Hart. All right. And now MAR. Because you're not going to be able to know how to spell Marjon Beauchamp.
Nobody knows how to spell it.
There we go. Yeah, I know how to spell it.
Prove it.
Scroll up a little bit, Jordan. Jordan, can you do me a favor and scroll up a little? By the way, look at how close this is. It is 50.1% to 49.9%. Beauchamp, Beauchamp, like beautiful, right? That's how you always remember it.
Beautiful and champ. That is true. Beautiful and champ. I did notice that you required Jordan scrolling up before you knew how to spell that, though.
It was because I wanted to see the projections.
Okay. All right.
I use that to help me spell sometimes.
I definitely believe you. Okay. All right. And Rocky Raccoon asks, are you overweight to Josh Green, or is he just Dookie stains?
No, I'm playing a lot of Josh Green tonight. And in my
Might still be
final,
Dookie stains, to be honest.
yeah, he could be. So I just did a final run of my lineups here, and yeah, he is my most rostered player on the slate.
Okay, yeah, I am doing that right now. Got to do my final run. Let's see, do we have more questions? I think we got another. Yeah, Corey Williams has another super chat asking McGee, so JaVale McGee or Jabari Walker for the last spot on DraftKings.
Pretty sure that's going to be, I mean, ideally neither of them, but if it has to be one or the other, that is going to be JaVale McGee.
So they're projected very similarly. Jabari Walker is 3,300. So that's he doesn't project quite as well point per dollar, but he projects for 14.99 fantasy points, whereas JaVale McGee projects for 15.12. And as you said earlier, Greg, JaVale McGee is in the last. Is Jabari also? Wait. Oh, they're both on the final time slot of the night. So yeah, I mean, JaVale McGee projects very, very slightly better than Jabari Walker. So that's probably the right answer. All right, let's see. All right, no more super chats. Okay, cool. And B Calicor says "Por qué no los dos?" Yeah, that's fair. That's exactly. I think he's responding actually to the Josh Green. You're overweight to him, and he's also Dookie stains. Jets World says,
by the way, because I've been working on my Spanish, that's why not both?
Why not both? Yeah, it's this. Yeah. I know that one. Have you been using an app to learn Spanish, Greg?
Very briefly, but what happened is I missed because I was using Duolingo, and it's so disheartening when you accidentally miss a day that you can't get back into it. But I do. So like yesterday when Eric was here for lunch and we went to a Mexican place to get food, and Eric was pretending he could speak Spanish when I actually was able to. So I was asking for the lady at the cash register. I asked for 2 bags to go. So like I was on my Spanish yesterday. So I'm slightly more advanced than Eric because of my Duolingo lessons.
But he tries to do it anyway. He's like, he can't speak Spanish, but he wants to anyway.
Yeah, which my dad does also. Like my dad gets really excited to speak Spanish. And then every time he's like deer in headlights when people start speaking Spanish, he's like, I don't know what any of this is. And I see a lot of that in Eric as well.
I'm the opposite. I clam up. Like I take Spanish lessons. There are like, sometimes I'll be, at a Mexican restaurant or something, or in Mexico back in the day. And I would like know how to say the thing I want to say. And I would just be like, I can't do it. I'm going to like screw it up. So I know if I know they're English speaking, I would just speak English anyway. All right. I am simming my lineups. I think we had another question in Discord. Oh yeah. Jets World. Would you play Mitchell and LeVert in DK Cash? If not, which one, if either? Donovan Mitchell, LeVert in DK Cash.
So earlier in the day, these guys were just like both absolute locks for cash games. But then what happens is you get a little bit closer to the start of the slate, and, there are other guys that you could also get to. So I have 26%, just to tell you guys what my exposure is, for instance, in tournaments. I have 26% of Donovan Mitchell. I have 13% of Caris LeVert. When I was running lineups this morning, I had something like 70% Caris LeVert and like 50% Donovan Mitchell. But then other players open up over the course of the day. So if I was spending up for one guy in cash games tonight, my priority would be Jason Tatum. If you could get to Tatum and Donovan Mitchell, like, cool. That's definitely something that's worth doing. I think you want to have at least one of Jason Tatum, Donovan Mitchell, and Luka. And my preference, all things being considered, price and whatnot, I would say Tatum is my number one preferred pay up option for cash games. It is a little bit easier to get to Tatum and Donovan Mitchell than it is to get to Tatum and Luka. So with that in mind, I would say probably if I was playing cash, it would have Donovan Mitchell and Jason Tatum in the lineup.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, as we saw with the player compare, Luka projects 11 fantasy points better than Jason Tatum, but there's also not like great min price value. So it's just so much harder to get to Luka than it is Tatum. That makes sense. All right. King Effin Dash asks, 1 point guard, 1 shooting guard, 1 small forward, 4,800 and under for FanDuel cash.
Okay. So we're starting with Point guard. So let me sort
Under
by point
4,800.
guards here. So it has to be under 4,800. If we're going under 4,800 for a cash game, I mean, this price range is dog shit on FanDuel. Like the guy that makes the most sense here would be Desunmu at 3,800, but you're not really looking to leave $1,000 on the table. But yeah, I mean, like Desunmu if you have to pick somebody else, because I don't even know where else I would tell him to go.
Okay. So it's going to be just, and that probably means you need to redo your cash lineup, I would think, if you're getting to really crappy players. Maybe not. I don't play a ton of cash. Who would you go to for shooting guard?
All right, so shooting guard, 4,800 and lower. The best option there is going to be Josh Green, who is $4,300. You should absolutely be playing Josh Green in cash games today.
And then what about small forward?
All right, so now small forward. What do we have for small forward? Small forward, 4,800 and under. And these options are terrible also, but Patrick Williams.
All right, there you have it. All right, let's see. Do we have more? Yes, we do. Brad Kaufman. Why on the Sims am I getting a ton of Io and Pat Will? I think it's just the price. They're just you don't have that many great cheap options. They're like decent point per dollar options on a slate where we're kind of hurting for great value. Would you agree with that take?
So it's a couple of things. The reason why you are getting to a lot of both of them is, like you said, there aren't the best cheap options in the world. But the other thing to consider as well is that there is no DeMar DeRozan for the Bulls.
Oh yeah, good point. That I guess that's the better answer is just so we don't have DeMar DeRozan. Cheyenne asks, opinion
I am surprised
on...
you're getting to, sorry to interrupt, but I'm surprised you're getting to that much of them because I don't know what you mean by a ton, but
right,
like I'm getting exposure to them, but it's not like these are like my most rostered players or anything like that.
Yeah, me neither. So maybe I would maybe try running it one more time because neither of those are really a huge part of my lineups either. But maybe he just means like 10% or something in that a ton. Cheyenne asks, opinion on Grady D with or without Schroeder on FanDuel.
Yeah, so Grady Dick is somebody who I would not be playing as of right now. I know that he had like a pretty solid game coming off the bench last time, but he also shot really well early on in the game. He also made some like pretty shitty errors. I don't think his playing time is guaranteed, but if Dennis Schroeder is out, I really do think that could potentially change what the equation would look like for the Toronto Raptors. And at least as of right now, though, Dennis Schroeder is in. So like they've already ruled him in. I don't expect him to get ruled out.
Okay. Wait, they've ruled Dennis Schroeder in already?
Yeah, Dennis Schroeder's in.
Oh, okay. Last I had seen he was still game time decision. So that is good to know. I am going to get my lineups in real quick because I've got about a minute to do so, and I don't even have dummy lineups in. So I'm going to do that right now.
So, by the way, part of it also, I realized that she asked the question probably before Dennis Schroeder was ruled in, because Schroeder was only ruled in 3 minutes ago.
Okay.
So I don't know the exact time of the super chat, but Cheyenne probably sent it in like as the news was coming out about Dennis Schroeder. So Schroeder in, Grady Dick, not somebody they want to get to. No Dick season tonight. Let's see what else we have as far as questions are in the Discord. And yeah, none of them. So I'll just run through who I ended up getting to the, we're also like right at lock right here.
Yep.
Here's who I ended up getting to the most exposure to at each position in my final run of lineups. Point guard was Drew Holiday. Shooting guard also Drew Holiday, although Derek White is my second most rostered point guard / shooting guard. So we could use them interchangeably there. Drew Holiday and Derek White is my two most rostered point guard / shooting guards. Josh Green is the guy I got to the most at small forward. He also has power forward eligibility. So my next most rostered power forward is Julius Randle. And then at center, also that would be Julius Randle. Bobby Portis, another one at power forward and center eligibility I get a lot of. As far as a player who's center only, that would be Vooch for me, Nikola Vucevic, who I got to in about a third of my lineup. So that is really the core group of guys that I have, and that is going to be my rooting interest for tonight's slate. And we're going to be getting right to it here off the bat with some of the highest priority players on the slate, because Josh Green just locked. And then we've also got guys like Luka Doncic without Kyrie Irving in the first game.
Yeah, so it'll be we can see momentarily what the ownership is on these guys. That'll be kind of interesting on the show. And then we can learn, 10, 15 minutes from now, whether all of our lineups are dead, whether we're crushing. We'll know that within 15 minutes how our night is going to go. All right. Do we want to take a look at so now we are post lock now. Post lock, do we typically take a look at the lineup generator for some NBA showdown lineups? Is that what we're thinking?
Yep, we could definitely go ahead and look at some of the showdown lineups and any other questions we get, any other late news. I will say that we're going to have that Joel Embiid news is going to come fairly soon. That game locks 30 minutes from now. We saw this last night, though, Neil. Did you play last night's slate by chance?
I did not play last night's slate.
All right, so last night's slate, I was a little annoyed by this because there was a lot of ownership going to DeJounte Murray. And the guy that I really liked, I was like, hey, instead of paying up for DeJounte Murray, I'm going to pay up for Joel Embiid because Embiid is somebody who the news also on Joel Embiid was expected to come out really late. It was unsure if he was going to be in or out. So I thought people just wouldn't play Joel Embiid. He wasn't crazy popular. He had about half the ownership of DeJounte Murray. And Joel Embiid went out. He scored like 70 fantasy points. So if you just told me that result before, I'd be like, boy, I must have crushed the slate. But unfortunately, DeJounte Murray for a slightly cheaper price point also scored right around 70 fantasy points.
Damn.
So it was like I hit on a pivot, but the chalk still ended up crushing.
Was Trae Young out?
Yes, Trae Young was out yesterday.
That makes sense. All right. So Jordan, are you going to pull up is it the Sims tool we want to look at for Showdown? Yeah, I think probably the Sims tool, right? Take a look at some Showdown lineups, and I'm not sure what the featured game is tonight for Showdown.
Yeah, so the featured game for tonight is the Oklahoma City Thunder against the Golden State Warriors. And like you, I wasn't exactly sure which one it was going to be because we've got a couple. Wait, that can't be right. Yeah, I was looking at tomorrow. My bad. I was like, that game's not even on the slate today. How could that not be it? So we've got, it can be two. We had either the choice of Portland, Cleveland, or the Lakers and Kings. And it is Lakers Kings, which is a little bit unfortunate here because we don't really know the status of LeBron James yet. He's listed as questionable. One thing that I do want to note, though, can you go back a second, Jordan? So if you guys see, we now have in the Jordan's computer, really not sized perfectly for this, but there we go. So we now have the contest archetype setting. So one thing that is really cool you could do in the Sims tool now when you're building out lineups is you could build a player pool based on the stakes you're playing. And that's really, to me, an important innovation to this because, you see this all the time, Neil. There's massively different ownership in something like a $5 buy-in tournament as compared to something that have like a $500 buy-in tournament. And now you can move the slider to have lineups that are geared or a player pool more geared towards what the field is expected to do based on the stakes of the contest. So for the default setting, it's going to be marquee. And what marquee is just the flagship contest. So like the $15 on DK, 400,000, 100,000 first place. So because that is what we're building lineups here, I'd leave that on. But I just wanted to note that that's a new feature we have here that I think is really cool.
Yeah, that is a great feature. Very important for this kind of, because you really do need to make your lineups.
Grady Dick starting after I went ahead and said that he was somebody that I was not all that interested in. Now I feel differently because he's starting. So let's see. So Otto Porter off the bench now. Yeah, we got a couple of weird starting lineups here. The Bucks are starting Andre Jackson Jr., and we've got the Raptors starting Dennis Schroeder, Grady Dick, Scotty Barnes, Pascal Siakam, Jakob Poeltl. So yeah, I think that Grady Dick is somebody we could get to, and also Barjan. Now I'm totally tripped up.
Beauchamp. I can spell that for you if you want me to.
Yeah, go ahead and do it.
Beauchamp. It's just beautiful and then champ.
You spell. I wanted to spell his first name. That's not how it's spelled. So Marjan Beauchamp, who looked like a good value play, who's going to be overowned, he is much less desirable now. And then also, now that we have Grady Dick in the starting lineup, what does his fantasy production look like on a points per minute basis this year? And also now, apologies to Cheyenne, because Cheyenne had asked us about Grady Dick, and I had said that I'm not interested in Dick tonight, but now I kind of am. I've got a
wants
thirst
all
for
the
it.
Dick tonight.
Yeah, I've got a thirst for it now. So what have we seen from him? Points per minute production. It's actually been really terrible. So maybe a little bit less interested now that I'm looking at him. He is played 15.1 minutes per game and is averaging 7.8 fantasy points, only around a half fantasy point per minute. So I don't assume he's going to project all that well for us when everything updates here in a second. He's somebody who you could have in lineups, but not going to be any sort of real priority. But the Bucks starting lineup. Let's see.
Andre Jackson is min priced. He's point guard and small forward eligible, and he scored 0.73 fantasy points per minute so far this year. So maybe he's the more interesting cheap play.
I would rather play Jackson than Grady Dick.
Oh, we have Giannis out. So I was thinking he's playing with the starters, but no Giannis. So that helps. Yeah. I'm going to be really curious to see where we end up with a projection for. I don't envy the people who do projections for us, because hard to predict what his minutes are going to look like tonight. I mean, we could have a Robert Covington situation like we had from last night, or he could play 30 minutes. It's kind of hard to know these kind of things, but we'll I'm sure our guys will be on top of it, have the best information, do our best to project the minutes there for Andre Jackson. Yeah, it's kind of fun that we're getting breaking news after lock. My only regret is that I have so much now of Josh Green. And if we had gotten this news 5 minutes before lock and been able to project out some of these other value plays, my guess is I would have had a little bit less of Josh Green.
I still would have had a lot of Josh Green. It's not, to me, this doesn't kill Josh Green in any kind of way. What this is going to happen is, remember before we were talking about JaVale McGee and saying how hey, you've got some lineups here with JaVale McGee. It's cool. I don't expect we're going to have them by the end of the night. That's kind of what happens right here now, is that some of these guys, if you guys had lineups that had JaVale McGee, he could turn into, an Andre Jackson or something like that. And we did get a super chat from Steven Sleeper, who said that he just noticed that Giannis is out, wants to know Brook or Portis. And I have a lot more exposure to Bobby Portis than I do to Brook Lopez. And then also something else that we should note here is that, Joel Embiid is in. Starting lineup for the 76ers is Joel Embiid at center. Just wanted to make sure I read that notification right. And then we also got the starting lineup for the Celtics, which is Sam Hauser. And I wasn't expecting Sam Hauser to start. So we got all kinds of moving pieces here. Holiday, White, Hauser, Tatum, Horford is the starting unit for the Celtics.
This is a night where you're going to want to take advantage of your late swap. I mean, that is true most nights, but that is particularly true tonight because we just had a bunch of news break right after lock. And we can take advantage of that. We can catch people sleeping, people not taking advantage of this news. We'll be updating our tools. And as we get our projections updated, Greg and I will give you an update on the new projections for some of these players that have changed here. All right, we should, by the way, when I did the Vivid reads, Vivid picks read earlier, I forgot to mention that your first play is secured up to $25 as well. So not only do you get your first deposit matched up to $300, and you can see it on the screen, you also get your first bet. You get up to, whether you win or lose, if you lose, you're going to get your first bet reimbursed up to $25. So if you play $25 or more, you're going to get reimbursed for that $25. If you play less, you're going to be reimbursed up to whatever the amount of your first bet is as well. So just one more little bonus there for playing on Vivid Picks if you want to take advantage of that, if you haven't already checked it out. And I should mention that you need to be 21 plus to play in most places. If you were somebody who has gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. All right. Do we want to go back to looking at the showdown slate, or do we have more pressing matters with all of this news changing?
Let's look at the showdown slate, because it's going to take a couple minutes for the projections to be updated, and then we could circle back and see what the updated projections are showing us.
Okay, cool. All right, so we are looking at the showdown slate now. Our highest exposed player is De'Aaron Fox. Is that our highest right there, Jordan? Just scrolled all the way up.
We've got a lot of De'Aaron Fox in the flex there. It's hard to make out what the number is on our screen, but I can see that it is Fox there. And then we've got LeBron James, followed by Domantas Sabonis, and let's see, Keegan Murray. Could you filter by just the captains, Jordan? I want to see where we're getting to the most in the captain spot. Look at Jordan use those filters. Look, and he knows the abbreviation. Oh no, I said he knows the abbreviation for captain, but then he didn't. He was just guessing and was close. Starts with a C. All right. So we've got LeBron right now, the most rostered captain, followed by Fox, then Sabonis, then Anthony Davis. Here's something I could pretty confidently say. If LeBron James gets ruled out, our Sims are going to say the best captain to get to is Anthony Davis for the night. But as of right now, he's actually fourth and somebody that we're underweight to the field too, because I see we've got the negative leverage there in terms of what we have there in the captain spot. But yeah, as of right now, LeBron James looks like the guy to get to in the multiplier spot.
Yeah, it is unfortunate that this is the game because it is like one of the few spots where we have really important news yet to come with LeBron being questionable. Do you have any kind of read on that, Greg? Like, I know like in past years, there have been times where LeBron is questionable every single game. I have not been tracking whether that's the case this year, if he's always listed as questionable. Do you have any kind of read on if he's playing?
It's tough because it's tail end of a back-to-back.
Yeah.
He was let's see, what has he done so far this year? How many back-to-backs have the Lakers played? All right. So we have seen the Lakers play one back-to-back this year. And LeBron actually played 39 minutes on the front end and 33 minutes on the back end. He missed 2 games ago with an injury. He's been questionable 3 games in a row now. So the Lakers up to their old tricks again. I don't have a great read. I think he's more likely to play than not, but I'm not totally confident in that. So there's a very wishy-washy answer.
Okay. I mean, I get the fair answer. I wasn't sure if this was a situation similar to, I think last year when he was just questionable every slate and it was like, yeah, he's probably going to play. They just list him questionable every day. But yeah, I think it's fair to question. All right. Anything else jumping out to you? So our highest exposed, as you said, LeBron currently highest exposed captain, but it'll probably be Anthony Davis if LeBron is ruled out. Who are, if you scroll down a little bit, Jordan, are we getting to any like cheap guys in these lineups? Because this is all stars at the top. Keegan Murray, okay. And these these are just captains we're looking at right now.
Yeah, these are just captains. So it's not looking like we're getting very many cheap captains. But okay. I would assume that could change. So somebody like Cam Reddish, D'Angelo Russell are probably guys that would be getting to more of his captains should LeBron James be ruled out. But at least as of right now, yeah, it's just mostly the 4 all-stars that are popping up in lineups.
Chris D says he's literally swimming in dick after the projections update, like a bachelorette party out there if you redo the sim. So we'll have to update our lineups. I'm going to refresh now, see what our new projections have for. I'm curious about like Dick versus Andre Jackson versus Hauser now. We suddenly have some interesting value here.
Yeah. So Hauser is by far the most expensive of the group. So I am running my lineups through the late swap tool right now. And I don't assume that I'm going to be getting to very much of Sam Hauser, although he will be in lineups. I'm curious to see whether I end up with more of Jackson though, or of Grady Dick. I think it's going to be Jackson though.
I'm heartened to see, Greg, that now when I sort by value, it's still Josh Green number 1. I thought that he was projected earlier for about 22 fantasy points. Josh Green is now projected for about 25 fantasy points. So he does look like a value that I'm more comfortable that I have a ton of Josh Green in my lineups. We have Andre Jackson is now our 3rd best point per dollar play on the slate. He's just projected for about 18 fantasy points in 27 minutes is where we have him. But he's the stone min price. So now he is the best stone min option in terms of pricing. And then Dick is still down the ways a little bit. He's 3,500. We've got him projected for 18 fantasy points in just under 30 minutes. So he's just such a bad point per dollar play that even when we put him in for nearly 30 minutes at 3,500, he's not like a screaming value. He's a 5.2x value. So looks good, but he's not like some incredible play. And then Hauser, do we have anybody else that we need to? Hauser is now projected. He's at 4,400. We've got him at 5.1x projected for just over 22 fantasy points.
So we should bring up Marjan Beauchamp just because he was expected to be really popular. And I do think there's probably going to be a lot of people that just leave him in lineups and don't take him out. So let's look at our projections and see what they're saying about him, because I know he's somebody that I am working to get myself out of lineups right now.
Yeah, so we now have Marjan Beauchamp he's 3,500. We've got him projected for 18 minutes and 12 fantasy points. So relative to those other options, he's not somebody you're really going to be wanting to have in your lineups anymore.
Nope, he is looking much worse now. The assumption before this news came out was that we thought that Beauchamp was going to be a starter. but it is Andre Jackson, which is why I see the big change, particularly in the minutes. We have Jackson, like you said, project for 27 minutes, whereas Beauchamp, it is, what's that number, 18? It's up there. So just, it's like their minutes flipped versus what they were before about.
Yep. All right, I'm going to be running my late swap tool. I love how advanced our late swap tool is now, because I can just throw in my lineups and it's just going to update with the best plays with the new information.
Yep, that's what I'm doing here as well, updating everything. And then we could come together, Neil, we could figure out that phrasing, but we'll figure out who the, well, we're absolute children around here. There's zero doubt about that. So what we are going to do after that is we could figure out, like, who are these cheap? Like, do we get to Sam Hauser? Do we get to Jackson? And then we can compare some notes.
Yes, we can. And Connor McGinnity asking me, any favorite sub 5K power forward eligible on FanDuel? Let me refresh that for you, Connor. I will take it out and I'll take a look at FanDuel, see who our best values are on FanDuel for power forward now. So we're looking for under 5K power forward. Nobody near the top in terms of value. Looks like the best we have, he already started, was Grant Williams. We do have, and I think somebody else had actually asked about him, Tumani Kamara. He's 3,900 on FanDuel. We're projecting him for just under 28 minutes and just under 19 fantasy points. So he's sort of in play. Honestly, it's not a great range, like not a great price point for FanDuel. You've got Bobby Portis at 5,700, Denny Avdia at 5,700. They look much better. So just from a point per dollar standpoint, you don't really want somebody who's just under 5,000. You'd probably want to go all the way down to Kamara there, and then upgrade elsewhere is probably what I would do. Yeah, not the best spot there. All right, so I am, as I said, I'm running the late swap tool, and now I can look at review projections. Want to see what my new exposures are.
And let me make sure there weren't any questions that came into us from Discord, which there are. We've got one here from a fun guy who said, do we still like Peyton Pritchard? Yeah, although there are other guys now that I think are comparable at similar prices. So this is going to lower my exposure to Peyton Pritchard. And then we have another question in here from Jets World, who wants to know Andre Jackson and Scotty Barnes or Beasley and Randall for DK cash. I say Beasley and Randall.
I think so too. The first one was, sorry, what was the first one again? Beasley and Randall versus...
It was Andre Jackson and Scotty Barnes or Beasley and Randall. Okay. Like, Randall's such an important part of my lineups that I think you should be playing him in cash games.
Yep. I think I agree with you there. And Andre Jackson, like, he looks fine, but he's still not like some incredible value there. I saw somebody in chat just said that Josh Green is looking like he's going to get outscored by Beauchamp already. So that's RIP my lineups if Josh Green is not going to get there.
Yeah, what's going on with Josh Green so far?
I have to take a look. But first I have to export my... Why is this? Oh, I got to favorite them first.
All right, yeah, so Josh Green is 0 fantasy points 3 minutes into the game. Luka off to a hot start. 3 minutes into the game, Luka is 8 points and an assist.
Yeah, well, I mean, is that... So he's at 9.5. I guess he's averaging, three fantasy points per minute. I guess that'll do it for Luka. All right. So now after I reran my lineups and I got to figure out where I can see my exposures just to give you, and I'm only playing 23 lineups tonight, Greg. So not the best, but what do I have? I've got 26.1% Luka. Oh, I got to sort by exposure now. Josh Green is my highest exposed player still, followed by Bobby Portis. I want to see if any of these new players that we weren't really on are making it. I have 35% Peyton Pritchard. I have 30% JaVale McGee, even after with the updated information. I still got to 30% JaVale McGee. Maybe I think I need to update my information because I'm still getting to Beauchamp. So I think I screwed this up. I got to go back to start over. I've still got the pre-news stuff in there. Luckily, I've still got 10 minutes to redo it. Have you run your late swap yet, Greg? Or
it's running? It is running as we are talking. I do see that somebody had asked us if we still like Bobby Portis. And the answer to me is yes. He's not in the starting lineup. I thought he was going to be. It's Dame, Jackson, Beasley, Middleton, Brook Lopez, but Bobby Portis is still definitely somebody who's worth getting to.
Yep, still going to be in there.
All right. Let me see what I ended up getting to as far as my lineups are concerned.
Cully Postone wants to know if we want Grady Dick, somebody named Black, or Pritchard. You have to pick one.
I would say be careful there. You might be getting punked there with some of those.
I am. I know that I'm getting
asked.
punked. That's why I said it in the order that I did. Anthony Black. I guess so. So we do have an Anthony Black on the slate. He is projected for 16 fantasy points at 3,800. We have Grady Dick at.
But by the way, this is just so you know, this is not meant to be a serious question that you're being asked here, Neil.
I realized that, which is why I answered it the way that I did, because I knew that I was getting punked. But I still thought I should answer the question because he sent a super chat.
Yeah. So of those players, the answer I have the most of Pritchard of that group of guys.
Apparently, Josh Green still has 0 fantasy points. So, man, night ruined. Thanks a lot, Josh Green.
It's all over. Let me see some of these other guys. So I have 9% of Andre Jackson. I still have some lineups that have Beauchamp, but not all that significant. So actually, both Beauchamp and Andre Jackson are in around 10% of my lineups here. And then the other player we were looking at was Sam Hauser from Boston. I have Hauser wound up in 9.7% of my lineups. And then we also wanted to check
Andre Jackson already?
Yes, I have Jackson. Yeah, I've got Jackson and Beauchamp both in around 10% of lineups, which I'm fine with. I think Jackson's viable, but I'm not like going out of my way to jam him in or anything like that.
Okay. All right. I'm not. I thought I was there. I thought I had my final lineup, so then I realized, oh no, I still need to simulate the slate with our new ownership projections, etc. So can't answer the question. What is this face that Jordan Klein is making at us? Was there probably something from chat? I don't know. It's we're so close to lock that I'm like, I need to be doing this. So I'm like trying to go back and forth, like get stuff going and then try to answer question. Pete Warner wants to know, Greg, are you jamming Dick tonight? I think Greg just answered that question.
Yeah, I have dinner plans.
What are you having for dinner? Have you figured that out yet? Have you thought about it?
I have 3% exposure to Grady Dick is what I got to. I thought that it was going to be somebody who I'd get more of, but then you start to look at his numbers and what his points per minute fantasy production is, and there's just other guys that become higher priorities.
We want to like him. We want to like Dick more than we do, unfortunately, because he just is not a great point per dollar play. We like you love to, you want to be able to like take advantage of the news, make the late swaps, but then when it's somebody that is that bad, it's hard to prioritize somebody like that. All right. Tim Lee wants to know core cheap plays for cash.
For which site?
Good question. Tim Lee, which site are you talking about? I'll assume DraftKings unless he tells us otherwise.
Was this a question in
DK DraftKings? This is in Discord. Yep.
Okay. So let's see. Core cheap plays for DK cash. Yeah. So one of them for me, Josh Green, already locked. I know that that might be regrettable for some people because we have 0 fantasy points out of him. Now, with that said, at this point in the game yesterday, you know who also had 0 fantasy points, Neil?
Robert Covington.
Joel Embiid.
Okay.
Covington finished with about 0 fantasy points. That's a little bit different. But Joel Embiid at this point in the game also had about 0 fantasy points. And then he finished the first quarter with over 20 and then had a really big game. So am I panicking? Yes, but I'm going to pretend that I'm not. So Josh Green would still be one of them for me. Other cheap players that I think you should be getting to in cash games. I don't know that there is. Like, what are we going to consider? Like, if 5,700 for Bobby Portis counts as cheap, you should be playing Bobby Portis in cash.
Yep. What are the... Okay. Other questions in... Oh, chat is moving. I apparently I clicked away from chat too long, and now it's just moving so fast that I can't read anything that's being said. Notorious Nick says Dick is always on his mind. Just a lot of Dick jokes. That's all chat is tonight. It's just going to be Dick jokes all night. Is Grady Dick good enough that he's ever going to be like a part of our lives enough that this is just going to be our life? Like people constantly making Dick jokes?
Very possibly.
Very possibly. Jordan Klein asks, FMK, Dick Wood or Dean Wade? Dick Wood or Dean Wade? Thoughts, Greg?
Wood's very tall.
He is very tall. That's marriage material, in my opinion.
I'm putting a lot of thought into this.
Yeah, no, you should. I mean, it's
Dean
an important question.
Dean Wade has already fucked me once this year. I played him on a slate I shouldn't have. I thought he was going to be a good value, and he absolutely was terrible. So I'm going to say not him. And who was the other? I'm going to Grady Dick dresses well.
Okay.
I'm going to say Grady Dick.
Wait, Grady Dick for which one? Mary?
Just for the dirty sacks. I don't even think I'm going to marry any of them.
Oh, you're not marrying any? I didn't know you could do that in Fuck, Marry, Kill. Okay. That is good to know.
Here's the thing about Fuck, Marry, Kill. There's no laws about what the about who you pick. It's not like this is in the
maybe not in New Jersey.
Yeah, it's not in the Constitution. Yeah,
I think it's a state by state thing.
Yeah, like you could play the game however you want. Now, certain places you go, and they're very strict with how you play the game and who you choose.
Yeah,
they'll stone you in some places.
All right, I don't think we're getting any more questions out of YouTube chat. Do we have any more in Discord that I'm missing? Tim Lee says under 5K cash locks is what he wants. So on DraftKings, cash locks under 5K.
Cash locks under 5. Really, the only one for me would have been Josh Green, and he just got a rebound. So look at that. He's on the board. He's got a rebound and no other.
Let's go. All right. Love to hear that. Y Dad says Luka has 2 fouls, but he's staying in. Interesting.
Yeah.
I forget what I know somebody said in chat earlier what the Luka ownership ended up being at. Heathen says Luka has 19.75 fantasy points already in the first quarter. I mean, I guess that's kind of what you expect from Luka. Like he's with no Kyrie there. What are we expecting? Like 1.7 fantasy points per minute. Chris Williams, our Apple guy.
Yep.
You guys are great. You know my question. Who are your favorite captains or plays for the DraftKings Lakers showdown? Assuming LeBron plays, tell people to atone. Oh yeah, guys, atone for your sins. Do please like the video if you haven't already done so. The sin bin, we've been calling it during NFL shows. I don't know if that's carried over to the NBA shows, calling our YouTube audience the sin bin, but yes, please do like the video. Favorite captains for the DraftKings Lakers showdown. So we already looked at the Sims tool a little bit for this, and it was, I believe, LeBron currently. And you were saying it's if LeBron is in, the Sims tool is telling us it's probably LeBron, our favorite captain. If LeBron is out, it would probably be Anthony Davis. Is that how you would answer that, Greg?
Yes. And then we weren't getting to very many of the cheap guys. It was still got it up here. Yeah. So it was LeBron, Fox, Sabonis, and then AD. So like the 4 guys you kind of expect. And there was a really big drop off. We weren't really getting to the cheap guys at all.
Right. Man, we're almost to the 7:30 lock is just coming up. So hopefully everybody has their lineup saying get them in. Any updates you need to do, because you've got probably a matter of seconds here. I don't have a seconds countdown here, but we are within that final minute to get your updated lineups in there. I think that is going to do it for the show. Greg, do you have any final thoughts?
No, the only thing that I will say is if you guys didn't do yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and don't forget promo code right now, Millie. If you guys didn't see, we've had some massive success going on in the NFL DFS streets. This weekend, we had somebody use the Sims tool, won $1 million. Somebody else won the $3 tournament. Another guy won the $1 tournament. So kind of like spanned the gamut of people across different buy-in levels that were playing in all different kinds of contests. So if you guys want to check out our NFL Sims tool, now is the time to sign up because we had somebody win a Millie Maker. We ended up running a promo code, 20% off our NFL Sims package when you sign up using the promo code Millie. It's also loaded into the link that we have below in the description box. So go check that out if you guys haven't done it already, because now is the time to sign up for the Sims tool, 20% off. And we're seeing some people win some really, really big money.
All right. Thank you for doing that read, Greg. Yeah, I missed the opportunity to do that read as we were getting all that information, all those questions. But that's an important one. 20% off the Sims tool is an incredible deal considering all the success that we've had recently. Not to mention our own Greg Ehrenberg here took down a couple tournaments early in NBA. You can use that for both either the NBA or the NFL Sims tool. So, if you want to take a look at the NBA Sims that Greg won 100,000 and 10,000 with early on, you can do that as well. Check it out use promo code Millie for 20% off. Thank you guys very much for watching. Hit that like button. Good luck tonight.